Chapter 33 Potential of a Path. Published by Web Novel. Elder and Elder Hu both nodded smiling as they watched Xuan Yuan interact with Yu Xiaolong, muttering about the lightning path, and the possibilities that Yu Xiaolong could take to further his own attainment. Attainment was a concept primarily used by rank 5 GU masters or higher. It was more than just a measurement of how an individual had grasped the profundities relating to a specific path, but also generated a passive form of intuition relating to that specific path. It was possible for this intuition to develop further, but that was for those who had attained a grandmaster level attainment or higher in a single path. Right now, Xuan Yuan had yet to become a master in the shadow path, but Elder Luo and Elder Hu were both sure that he was at least a quasi-master. As far as they were both aware, there wasn't a single other quasi-master rank 2 GU master in the entire sect. Not only had Xuan Yuan achieved this with no backing or formal teacher, but also within the span of a single year. It had only taken him 12 months to become a quasi-master in the shadow path. Not to mention the fact that he is still researching other paths, Elder Luo thought. When Elder Kong mentioned the second aperture GU, Elder Luo's heart soared thinking of the possibilities. If Xuan Yuan possessed such a thing, he wouldn't be limited to just the shadow path if he became a GU immortal. 2 apertures meant 2 vital GU. 2 apertures meant 2 blessed lands. 2 apertures allowed him to walk 2 paths. It also meant that he would receive twice the returns on his calamities and tribulations, but also twice the danger. But Xuan Yuan would be able to handle it, he thought. Of this, Luo Yu was sure. While Elder Luo was entranced with his thoughts, the sect leader just showed a small smile nodding as he watched Xuan Yuan interact with Yu Xiaolong. He didn't particularly take Elder Kong seriously when he heard he wanted the boy to be this generation's abyssal child, but after hearing several different GU immortals' names being mentioned, he couldn't help but be intrigued by the boy. He had seen him fight, albeit for a brief moment, with another rank 2 GU master, and despite the fact that he knew what Xuan Yuan had done, he couldn't think of the name of the GU he had used. Its range was quite short, barely 10 feet, but it was a radius around Xuan Yuan, not just in a single direction. It was a powerful counter to close quarters type GU masters. If they even tried to approach Xuan Yuan, they would be cut by thin, yet extraordinarily sharp strings of shadow. The worst thing about them that they wouldn't be able to see it if they weren't focusing on Xuan Yuan's shadow. The sect leader didn't know that Xuan Yuan was the one who completed the GU recipe, but Elder Kong and Elder Guo both smiled, the latter stroking his beard as he tried to listen to Xuan Yuan's conversation. Even if the boy knows nothing of the true potential of the lightning path, his knowledge of GU is quite deep. I don't remember the last time someone mentioned the thunder taunt GU to me. Elder Kong nodded, his thick white eyebrows rising a fraction of an inch. Xuan Yuan has already begun striving towards the zenith of the shadow path, his intentions and desires pure and straightforward. However, it is slightly concerning just how many paths he is exploring at once. Light, dark, moon, wisdom, poison, space, refinement. Perhaps it is nothing, but even that is too many. We risk him diverging from his original path if he tries to explore too many at once. The elder's mind flashed back to the second aperture GU, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. Even if they managed to obtain the GU, there would be endless conflict as the other members of the 10 great sects tried to get their hands on it. Even if they were all members of the righteous path, competition still existed between each and every one of them. If Xuan Yuan's talents became widespread, and it was known that he possessed multiple apertures, perhaps he would become the target of more than just demonic GU masters. It would be better if we just leave those thoughts to rest, Elder Kong thought. Seeing Xuan Yuan apologize, and then guide Yu Xiaolong towards the right step in his lightning path made him and the other elders smile. Xuan Yuan was the future of the ancient soul sect, of that much he was completely sure. More of the fights continued until the beginning of the second round started. There were only a couple serious injuries, but the vast majority of them were healed by Elder Bing before anyone was crippled or worse. Seeing Bing Ti from the first round of fights head up for his second match, Xuan Yuan came to a realization. Ah, so they are testing us on our martial arts as well? Once all of the rank 1 GU masters are out of primeval essence, they will be forced to physical fight each other to win. Eventually, even their stamina will run out, forcing them to drop out of the tournament. The tournament was less about determining who was the best in individual fights, and more about who could last the longest. Rank 2 GU masters had the greatest advantage from this perspective, considering even if they used rank 1 GU, they could use their GU more than a rank 1 GU master. Xuan Yuan had used rank 1 silhouette strings GU in order to beat Yu Xiaolong, so his primeval essence usage had barely scratched the surface. Even then, he had a rank 1 cloud essence GU to convert primeval energy directly into primeval essence. It was invaluable in letting Xuan Yuan fight for longer. The otherworldly demon made note of the other rank 2 GU masters in the tournament, particularly their paths, as well as any GU that they had shown. Song Pei used the same strategy in his previous fight, this time, his opponent barely doing any damage to his raging river crocodile before the beast eventually caught up to him, forcing the referee to interfere. Fang Kai, the grandson of Fang Long, actually was a poison path GU master, which greatly surprised Xuan Yuan. He used a combination of poison needle GU and venomous claw GU to overwhelm and defeat his opponent. Tai Yong was a fire path GU master like Jia Yufei and used a combination of martial arts and his vital GU, a rank 1 fire cloak GU, to overwhelm his opponent with sheer heat and his physical size. Tai Yong was very much like his father, Elder Tai, a tall, yet also round-looking young man. He lacked the facial hair and wrinkles, but otherwise appeared a copy of his father. His twin sister, Tai Yin, on the other hand, appeared soft, gentle, and, if Xuan Yuan was being perfectly honest, the most developed figure of any girl his age. He noticed more than a few eyes, including Yu Xiaolong's, linger on her figure as she left the stage. The girl was surprisingly a sword path GU master. She didn't follow after her father and walk the water path, showing the skill and comprehension of the sword path far beyond that of Bing Ti. Her vital GU was a rank 1 sword shadow GU, which was, from Xuan Yuan's understanding of the sword path, a GU with one of the strongest offensive capabilities at any rank. No matter if it was rank 2 or even rank 3, Tai Yin's sword shadow GU would exceed any single GU in terms of piercing power. She alone made Xuan Yuan the most wary in the entire tournament. Peak rank 2 GU master cultivation and a rank 1 sword shadow GU. In addition, she might possess other rank 2 GU given to her by Elder Tai. If that is the case, then she is the most dangerous GU master out of the entire batch of new disciples. Xuan Yuan was interested in the sword shadow GU, primarily because he thought it was also a shadow path GU. He had seen a shadowless sword GU with his own eyes, but never a sword shadow GU or a shadow sword GU. There were minute differences between all three, but that wasn't what Xuan Yuan was interested in. Does sword shadow GU contain both shadow path and sword path profundities? Without a doubt it is a sword path GU, but why shadow? Is it because it is so fast that you can only see its shadow? Or is there something else about it that gives it its name? Xuan Yuan kind of wanted a sword shadow GU of his own, after he had seen Tai Yin use it. Like how Xuan Yuan had did earlier, she merely flicked her fingers softly, producing an incredibly fast black beam of sword Qi. The black beam of sword Qi didn't possess any shadow that Xuan Yuan could see, and instead pierced straight through her opponent, eventually dissipating into wisps, causing Xuan Yuan to raise an eyebrow. Her second fight was against a rank 1 earth path GU master, who conjured an earthen shield on his arm. He started charging towards Tai Yin, but similarly, felt his shield punctured, and his stomach cut open from the sword shadow. Xuan Yuan narrowed his eyes at that particular fight, knowing that Tai Yin another GU in order to enhance the offensive power of her sword shadow GU. A combination like that should be able to thread and dense shadow blade GU without the use of bright red light GU. Its speed is immense for rank 1, and the cutting power is beyond that of any other GU I have seen. The otherworldly demon had a few tricks up his sleeve, but just moved his gaze away from Tai Yin, instead focusing on Yu Xiaolong's second bout. The young man had asked Xuan Yuan more than a dozen questions about the lightning path, to the point where even Xuan Yuan had to shake his head, shrugging his shoulders. Most of the others his age had never thought about compatibility between GU, instead trying to obtain as many as possible in a short amount of time. The lightning path was considered by everyone in the batch of new disciples to be a purely offensive path, which Xuan Yuan scoffed at. Purely offensive. Xuan Yuan rolled his eyes at the thought. It was true that it possessed extraordinary offensive capabilities, but GU masters his own only saw the surface potential of their path, not the hidden depths that lay beneath. The lightning path on the surface didn't possess any similarities with the soul path, yet the Thunder Ghost True Monarch created an immortal killer move using the thunder path and the soul path to mimic the information and wisdom paths. It created a trident which could be thrown at a target. If the trident was deflected or diverted from the target, the user could swallow the return trident and gain information regarding the opponent's defenses in GU. It could even be used to deduce the essence of an opponent's immortal killer move. Those descendants of elders had the advantage in that their parents or grandparents could pass down some of their attainments in a path, increasing the speed at which they comprehended a path. Obviously there was a limit to how much they could understand, otherwise, clans would have taken over the GU world a long time ago. At the very least, they could help them get to a quasi-master level attainment, before they needed to bridge the gap with experience and their own understandings. Xuan Yuan had the advantage in terms of his past life knowledge, and a superior comprehension. In addition to shadows as thought GU which drastically sped up his thinking processes, there was no way any GU master his age possessed even a similar attainment without some sort of inheritance. The 16-year-old just sat there quietly, analyzing the battles of his fellow GU masters, before his name was shortly called. Platform 1, Xuan Yuan vs. Luola. Chapter 34 Xuan Yuan vs. Luola. Published by Web Novel. Platform 1, Xuan Yuan vs. Luola. Xuan Yuan glanced at Luola, feeling his slightly unstable peak rank 1 GU master cultivation. Xuan Yuan had remembered Luola as one of the few GU masters who was quite wasteful with his primeval essence, and that he also used strength path GU. His vital GU was a rank 1 frog strength GU, which granted him immense strength and extreme mobility in his lower body. Frog strength GU also enhanced the stickiness of the palms and the soles of one's feet, albeit not nearly to a degree which allowed a GU master to stick to walls. Seeing his opponent Luola paled significantly, remembering the outcome of Xuan Yuan's fight with Yu Xiaolong. While Xuan Yuan was respectful and even tried to assist Yu Xiaolong after the fight, Luola distinctly remembered how Xuan Yuan had won his fight. He just watched as the elder disciple stood completely still, his fingers dancing lightly in the air. There was no explosion of fire or lightning, or sharp burst of ice or sword chi, no wave of poison or water surging towards his opponent. 1 second Yu Xiaolong was less than 10 feet away from Xuan Yuan, and the next, he was on the ground bleeding from dozens of deep wounds to his upper body. Whatever Xuan Yuan had done, it had happened in an instant, and there was no way to tell what he exactly did, let alone figure out a countermeasure against it. Stepping up to the platform, he unconsciously gulped seeing Xuan Yuan step up on the opposite side as him. Luola turned towards the rank 3 GU master referee, who just glanced at them both, giving them a small nod. Xuan Yuan returned it, but Luola couldn't help but speak up before the beginning of the match. His palms sweaty and clammy, the sound of his heart beating echoing throughout his skull. I know I can't win, and whatever I do won't make a difference. But I need to know, what type of GU did you use to beat Yu Xiaolong? Xuan Yuan raised an eyebrow, tilting his head slightly. Really? I thought it was quite obvious. Luola shook his head, letting out a scoff. 1 second Yu Xiaolong was charging at you, and the next he was bleeding out on the floor. There was nothing, no fire, no ice, no lightning. What was it? The wisdom path? The space path? I know Elder Luo is a space path GU master, so it would make sense for you to walk the same path. Xuan Yuan blinked, before shaking his head. No, I walk the shadow path. I have received instruction in the space path, but have no intention of taking it towards rank 6. Perhaps as a subpath, but it is too early to decide something like that. Luola and the vast majority of the other GU masters in the arena all appeared somewhat dumbfounded. Shadow path? What the hell was that? Song Pei, Feng Long, Tai Yin and Tai Yan all nodded somewhat, understanding Xuan Yuan's decision. Since they already knew what his path was, there was no point in hiding it from rank 1 GU masters without any chance of beating him. A few of the others, like Bing Ti, Jia Yufei, Li Shaoer and Yu Xiaolong all seemed surprised by Xuan Yuan's reveal. They didn't expect him to be so forthcoming with the details of his path, considering none of them could form a countermeasure against it while they didn't know what it was. Yu Xiaolong in particular just nodded, wincing at the sensation of shadows cutting his flesh. So that's what it was. I didn't even know there was a shadow path. What is the difference between the shadow path and the dark path then? I thought they were the same thing. Luola just stood there dumbfounded, moving his gaze lower, towards Xuan Yuan's shadow. He could faintly see some parts of it moving, shifting in its depths. Xuan Yuan was quite a tall young man, probably around 16, yet his shadow was longer and darker than his own, an indication of his path. Luola just gave Xuan Yuan a bow before nodding to the referee. I apologize for the delay. I am ready now. The rank 3 GU master just nodded, not fazed at all by the delay. Raising his hand, he swung it down swiftly, signaling the beginning of the match. Xuan Yuan narrowed his eyes, watching the unmoving form of Luola. The rank 1 GU master was currently standing in place, a smile on his face as he remained unmoving from his initial starting position. Your strange shadow-cutting GU must have a short range for having such a strong effect. If I remain here, then you cannot reach me. Luola just grinned at his strategy. Xuan Yuan suppressed an eye roll before walking towards Luola slowly, his fingers gently tapping the air. It was the same gesture he made last match, causing Luola to become wary, focusing solely on Xuan Yuan's shadow. 10 feet was the rough estimate on the range of his GU, which is what most of the GU masters thought about Xuan Yuan's unknown shadow-cutting GU. However, they were a vast number of different reactions, seeing the shadow of the 16-year-old transform, a strange black appendage growing out of Xuan Yuan's back. Luo Li's eyes widened, seeing an enormous, thick scorpion stinger manifest at base of Xuan Yuan's spine. The GU was raised, poised and ready to strike, its length far exceeding anything that Luola had seen before. It was almost 5 meters long, and exceeded the effective range of Xuan Yuan's silhouette strings GU. But it was perfect to strike Luola with. Xuan Yuan flexed his tailbone, swinging the large shadow stinger GU towards Luola. The young man immediately activated his frog strength GU, swiftly dodging the strike, but felt his eyes widen as the black stinger passed through him harmlessly before his torso exploded with pain. Luola was sent flying backwards, the blow from the large appendage causing the wind to leave his lungs, leaving him gasping for air. His mind in a state of confusion, feeling the delayed pain from the hit. He didn't even notice Xuan Yuan place his stinger directly on the head of his shadow, mere inches away from piercing his head. Seeing this, the rank 3 GU master was forced to call the match. Winner, Xuan Yuan. Xuan Yuan glanced at Luola, dismissing his shadow stinger GU before extending his hand, gesturing for Luola to take it. The strength path GU master just blinked before taking his hand, lifted to his feet by Xuan Yuan. His gaze at the disappearing form of Xuan Yuan's shadow stinger GU, watching it drip back down into Xuan Yuan's shadow, like ink dripping down a canvas. The GU looked as though it possessed substance, but vanished as quickly as it appeared. Luola wasn't injured like Yu Xiaolong, so Xuan Yuan just gestured to his shadow before making his way off the stage. The young man glanced towards his feet, specifically to his own shadow, holding onto its stomach. Don't get distracted next time. Your reflexes are excellent. Just keep an open mind when fighting GU masters who use obscure paths. They have methods that are uncommon, and as such, aren't easy to deal with. Xuan Yuan walked off the stage and back towards the crowd. Luola unconsciously nodded at his words, still partly shocked at how he lost. His scorpion stinger passed right through me, but I didn't feel anything. Was it a delayed reaction? And so, Xuan Yuan must have used another GU in tandem with that large scorpion stinger GU. But what type of GU can delay pain? Is that what he meant by strange methods? Luola rubbed his chin as he exited the platform, his mind still replaying the short fight in his head, slightly thankful that Xuan Yuan didn't extend the fight, forcing him to use more primeval essence. Others in the crowd also watched 21's fight. They expected him to close the distance and use his strange cutting GU to finish Luola off, but instead, he shocked everyone in the crowd with his enormous rank 1 unknown transformation path GU. However, those with a more discerning eye in the crowd could see the truth behind 21's GU. Tai Yong glanced at his sister, seeing her shake her head. I don't recognize the GU. It has to be something either from Elder Luo, or possibly from Elder Hu. I know that she favors Xuanyuan too, and Elder Kong has to remain as impartial as possible until the abyssal child is chosen. Tai Yin nodded at her brother's words, taking out a small notebook and writing something down within it. Other than her, only her brother knew the contents of this notebook, not even their father, Elder Tai knew what was contained within. The peak rank 2 GU master just hummed before placing the notebook back in her robes. Her eyes lingering on Xuanyuan as he walked back towards his seat. Be careful, sister, otherwise people might get the wrong idea. Tai Yin rolled her eyes at her brother, waving him off in a casual manner. I am the older sibling here. If I want to watch handsome GU masters fight and bleed, I will do it for as long as I am entertained. The sword cuts through lies and fallacies. Eventually I will see the man behind the shadow. The younger Tai sibling just sighed, shaking his head. This older sister of his was quite the handful. The shadow path is quite interesting, don't you think, Yin? The first time, during his fight with Yu Xiaolong, it was almost perfectly invisible, except for the shadows of strings connected to his on the floor. Even if Yu Xiaolong was paying attention, he was probably going to fast to stop anyway. And in the second fight, to be perfectly honest, I almost thought it was a transformation path GU. But when it phased through Luola as if it didn't exist, I knew that it was a shadow path GU. It didn't even so much as hurt him, until Xuanyuan struck his shadow. The scorpion stinger must be an extremely powerful GU for rank 1, although the drawback is that it can only interact with other shadows. Tai Yin nodded. Xuanyuan also refined a Shadow Eyes GU as his vital GU. I don't know why he picked such a thing, considering its future refinements are quite lacking. Perhaps Elder Luo knows another refinement path, or a method to refine it into something else. I also heard rumors that he purchased 2 rank 2 GU in Earth Soul City. A dense Shadow Blade GU and a bright red light GU. Both of them together can probably match any GU that father has given us. He might even have more, if Elder Luo was feeling particularly generous. The siblings analyzed Xuanyuan's movements, reactions, GU and even cultivation to the best of their abilities. Both of them knew that if either Elder Luo, Elder Hu or Xuanyuan himself tried to purchase a liquor worm or a relic GU, the other elders would know about it. Considering that they didn't have any information on it, and that Xuanyuan's cultivation was already at the middle stage rank 2, he definitely lived up to his talent as a 99% primeval essence CGU master. It was possible that one of his friends had purchased one for him, but even if that were the case, he was a rank 2 GU master now. A rank 1 liquor worm GU wouldn't work for a rank 2 GU master, and a cloud essence GU had greater diminishing returns with every small realm his cultivation progressed. Both Tai Yin and Tai Yong knew that while their cultivation exceeded Xuanyuan's, their comprehension most likely didn't. It was why ever since their father pushed both of their cultivations to the peak of rank 2, the pair only focused on their respective paths, trying to increase their understanding of the sword path and fire path. At this rate, both of their vital GU would still be rank 1 by the time they both became rank 3 GU masters. They knew that their father could help them obtain the refinement recipes for both the Sword Shadow GU and the Fire Cloak GU, but considering the two were both their vital GU, both would have to complete the refinement themselves. They additionally had more than a few other GU which they could use to enhance their vital GU beyond their regular strength. It would allow them to use only a single GU, even a rank 1 GU, and still display a strength equivalent to a rank 2 GU master. Tai Ying kept staring at Xuanyuan, and watched as the slightly older boy turned and faced her, staring her straight in the eyes. She could see Xuanyuan's dark, clear eyes and unconsciously smiled, leaning back in her chair, winking at him. Her posture was quite masculine, arms spread open, behind either chair beside her and one foot placed over the other knee. Xuanyuan didn't even so much as flinch, eyes roaming all over her body, before he smiled, giving her a small nod. His attention moved back towards Elder Chong, who was calling out the names for the next round. Tai Yong only just sighed, seeing the grin on his sister's face widen as she continued to stare at Xuanyuan. Chapter 35. Are you weak? Published by web novel. Tai Yin. She is probably the most dangerous GU master in the new batch of disciples. Her posture is unruly, and her gaze is sharp, befitting that of a sword path GU master. Offensively, none of the other GU masters her age are her match. Defensive and supportive sword path methods are uncommon, so I wonder what she will do when faced with Song Pei or Feng Kai, both of whom possess a similar depth. While Xuanyuan was confident against any GU master that wasn't the descendant of an elder, against those 4 elder descendants, Xuanyuan had to admit, he was lacking in terms of combat experience. Yu Xiaolong was the son of a wealthy rank 3 GU master in Earth Soul City, and his strength was above average in comparison to someone like Luola or Bing Ti. He was similarly lacking in terms of combat experience but possessed powerful offensive GU which helped bridge the gap. Someone like Bing Ti, who knew how to kite beasts to avoid them using their strengths, was the opposite. He clearly had some experience hunting or killing beasts, but lacked powerful GU to strengthen himself further. Those elder descendants were not lacking in either, and didn't just make Xuanyuan wary. Yu Xiaolong sat beside Xuanyuan, and Lu Guo behind him, the 3 young men chatting with each other about their previous matches. It was quite unlucky for Yu Xiaolong to be placed at Xuanyuan like that. Not to mention how brutal he was with his attack. You're lucky that my older sister isn't here, Xuanyuan. Believe me, she would give you an earful for something like that. Xuanyuan rolled his eyes, ignoring Lu Guo's words. His sister was definitely a valuable ally to have, being a member of the Burning Soul Hall, but Lu Rong was nothing special, especially considering he seemed to have annoyed Elder Li, the elder in charge of the Burning Soul Hall. Lu Rong was a member of the Burning Soul Hall, which was the only soul hall in the ancient soul sect which didn't require its members to be rank 3 or higher in order to join. While every other soul hall, like Earth Soul Hall, Dark Soul Hall, Wood Soul Hall and even Refinement Soul Hall required at least a rank 3 GU master cultivation, Burning Soul Hall had but one requirement. Those who join must possess righteousness in their hearts. Lu Rong and the few other members that Xuanyuan had met were annoyingly righteous. Not to the level of a religious fanatic, but they certainly were incapable of being reasoned with. Xuanyuan could understand the perspective of the demonic path, especially from a viewpoint like Feng Yuan's. To him, everything in the world was transient, temporary. All things in the universe were destined to die, humans, trees, beasts and even mundane creatures such as pigs and ants. If the ending of everything in creation was predetermined, then no choices ever truly mattered. Feng Yuan's emotions gradually dried up over years of hard work with no reward in sight, with efforts being met with betrayal and love only to be met with death. Eventually, only a desire for eternity remained. If nothing else mattered in this world, then reaching immortality would change that. It would mean the validation of his entire existence. He could prove, not just to others, not just to the world itself, but also to him, that I truly existed. He would persevere through rain and hail, through thunder and lightning. He would persevere until he reached eternity. It was an honorable goal, even if he disregarded everything else to reach it. Xuanyuan didn't have the same experiences as Feng Yuan. He couldn't rid himself of his emotions, his desires, his tears, quite so easily. Even if he wanted to, part of him couldn't help but think back to the powerful rank 9 GU in the legends of Renzu. Love GU and hatred GU were 2 such examples. The former allowed a mortal to resist the blows of a GU immortal, while the latter, if the legends of Renzu were to be believed, allowed Renzu to shatter blue heaven. Other forms of GU that Xuanyuan only realized existed after reading the legends of Renzu for himself were Sin GU and Virtue GU. These 2 GU were always found beside each other, fighting violently, each trying to kill the other. In the legend of Renzu, Black Night Eclipsing Sky was born from Renzu's shadow and blood. It was here in the lightless abyss, a place which nurtured shadows born without light, was the shadow of man created here. Black Knight eclipsing sky, born from the darkness of the lightless abyss, the shadow and blood of Ren Zhu, and the light of Moon Ji Yu, carried his own speck of light and dark within him. From the moment he was born, Black Knight eclipsing sky carried within him the memories of his father's shadow. He could remember everything his father had, everything he had seen, everything he had touched, everything he had felt. He understood Ren Zhu's desire for freedom after realizing he was trapped by the endless web of fate. He understood the sorrow and misery Ren Zhu felt after watching his children die one by one. He understood the importance of hope, the power of rules and regulations, the importance of wisdom and strength, and the difference between truth and lies. Looking around, Black Knight eclipsing sky knew everything that his father had experienced before leaving him in the lightless abyss. His father had been torn apart, a dissonance created between himself and his shadow. Moments after just being born, he had been abandoned, left to fend for himself amidst shadows that were born without light. Father, he asked, where have you gone? But Black Knight eclipsing sky received no answer. A sharp pain cut at his heart, and unconsciously, Black Knight eclipsing sky knew that this was sadness. His father had once experienced sadness for himself, after losing his children, losing himself, losing his way, gradually growing insane. Despite having just been born, Black Knight eclipsing sky knew the difference between right and wrong, good and evil, sin and virtue. As a result, sin Ji Yu and virtue Ji Yu buried themselves deep within the heart of Black Knight eclipsing sky. One glowed a brilliant golden color, purifying and searing away all the excess and malevolent thoughts in his heart, while the other hummed a dark and violent melody, stoking the baser desires within Black Knight eclipsing sky. Both of them drew a sharp divide within Black Knight eclipsing sky. He wouldn't realize until much later that he wasn't sure if he himself existed, or was just the combination of sin Ji Yu and virtue Ji Yu. He himself was the shadow of man, illusory and transient, nothing more than the shadow of his father. Xuanyuan's eyes narrowed at that particular line, trying to think of the profundities behind it. He had thought about it quite a number of times, late at night, reading the legend of Ren Zhu just as he was about to fall asleep for the night. In the end, Xuanyuan just let out a sigh, leaning his head back and drawing the attention of Yu Xiaolong and Lu Guo. The former just looked at his new friend, tilting his head slightly. You all right, Xuanyuan? Something the matter? Xuanyuan just closed his eyes before asking both of his friends a question. Do you two believe that love Ji Yu, or even hatred Ji Yu, sin Ji Yu or virtue Ji Yu exist? We read about them in the legends of Ren Zhu, but how much of it is actually true? Does love Ji Yu truly possess an infinite amount of power? Can sin Ji Yu truly devour sins? Can virtue Ji Yu actually steal the virtues of others? Yu Xiaolong and Lu Guo both looked at each other and blinked, the latter shrugging his shoulders at the sudden question. In the legend of Ren Zhu, sin Ji Yu can devour the sins of other people, right? Black Knight eclipsing sun used it to destroy a part of green heaven, didn't he? Something about releasing the desires of man upon the heavens and earth. But it can't actually be real, right? I mean, a single Ji Yu which could destroy an entire continent. There shouldn't be a single Ji Yu, immortal or not, which can do such a thing. Even the 10 great mystical Ji Yu, or even the 10 great demonic Ji Yu can't do such a thing. And even then, virtue Ji Yu is considered third on the 10 great demonic Ji Yu list. Sin Ji Yu is ranked fourth. They are considered a pair, yet virtue Ji Yu is much more dangerous for some reason. Xuanyuan lifted his eyebrow, not knowing that piece of information. Sin Ji Yu was shown in the legends of Ren Zhu, but the effects of virtue Ji Yu were not. But for some reason, virtue Ji Yu was considered even more blasphemous by the righteous path than sin Ji Yu. Virtue Ji Yu is the third ranked Ji Yu on the 10 great demonic Ji Yu list. I didn't know that, said Yu Xiaolong. Lu Guo nodded. My sister told me all of the immortal Ji Yu which are considered demonic by the 10 great sects. The list goes beyond just the top 10, but in particular, the top 10 are all taken extremely seriously. I heard that the Demon Judgment Board personally takes action against Ji Yu immortals with one of these Ji Yu in their possession. Xuanyuan unconsciously nodded, thankful that he brought this up. He didn't pay attention too much about the politics in the mortal world, thinking primarily about his future after he became a rank 5 Ji Yu master. By that stage he should be thinking about his immortal ascension, and how to obtain derivation Ji Yu in the primordial domain at the bottom of Crazed Demon Cave. He almost didn't hear Elder Chong call out his name, and he didn't even hear the name of his opponent, until Yu Xiaolong nudged his arm. Frowning slightly, he turned and looked at his friend, seeing both of them expressions change as they pointed towards his next opponent. Xuanyuan turned and looked towards where Yu Xiaolong was pointing. His fellow rank 2 Ji Yu master suppressed a gulp as he narrowed his eyes at the familiar figure of his next opponent. Her full-bodied figure was quite eye-catching in comparison to the rest of the female Ji Yu masters in the arena, and the smile on her face was equally as enchanting. Xuanyuan raised an eyebrow before glancing towards Elder Chong, who just smiled, returning Xuanyuan's stare with an equally blasé expression. Elder Luo had a similarly strange expression on his face, but neither the sect leader nor Elder Kong did anything about it. Just looking at those two in particular act without much care for Xuanyuan's opponent made him want to sigh, but suppressed it before standing up, walking towards his platform. Single quote ... In 3 fights I've had to fight against 2 rank 2 Ji Yu masters. There can't be more than a dozen in our entire batch of new disciples, and yet now I have to fight Tai Yin mere moments after meeting her gaze. I'm being put on display. Xuanyuan glanced at the 3 Ji Yu immortals sitting in the crowd. Immortal Chu just smiled at him, giving him a graceful nod, while the 2 female Ji Yu immortals either side of him just gazed at Xuanyuan expressionlessly. He wasn't sure if the immortal with scarred hands had anything to do with this, but he knew that their presence alone was enough to make any elder sway their position of him. Xuanyuan wanted the inheritance of Limitless that the ancient soul sect had in their possession. In order to do that, he needed to become the ancient soul sect's next abyssal child. If he had to defeat Tai Yin, Song Pei or any of the other elder descendants, he'd bite their ears off if he had to. Walking up to the stage, Xuanyuan felt the gazes of countless others on his body. By this stage, he had gotten used to the stares, and faint whispers spoken behind his back. Xuanyuan didn't concern himself with the affairs of children and idle gossip, focusing the entirety of his attention solely on Tai Yin. The beautiful raven-haired girl tied her hair up in a simple ponytail, highlighting the skin around her neck and the blush on her cheeks. The young woman just continued to stare at Xuanyuan, her eyes roaming all over his figure, including the long dark shadow that followed him. Quote ... You're even better looking than the pictures that Huojin spread about you, you know that, she spoke. Xuanyuan just nodded, his shadow mimicking his actions. Thank you, you two are, well, it goes without saying. Tai Yin placed a small strand of hair behind her ear, giving Xuanyuan a small huff. For a moment, the girl seemed to act her age, but the glint in her eyes betrayed her. A girl can never be without compliments, little Yuan. Even if something is obvious, a girl will never refuse to hear about how beautiful she is. Xuanyuan suppressed an eye roll. Hearing it over and over again, don't you know that all men just want one thing from you? They don't care about your likes and dislikes, your favorite color or your favorite food. All they want is what they can see. Little Yin. Tai Yin placed her hand up to her mouth and suppressed a giggle, even distracting the rank 3 Ji Yu master referee for a moment. The older Tai sibling just nodded unceasingly, her gaze becoming sharp, and the unmistakable aura of sword chi leaking from her pores. It didn't use primeval essence, so the referee didn't say anything, only snapping out of his trance and glaring at Tai Yin. The girl just waved the referee off, her eyes still focused on Xuanyuan. Are you the same then, just like the rest of them? Xuanyuan raised an eyebrow, shrugging his shoulders lightly. It depends. Are you weak, Tai Yin? The girl finally showed a change in expression, her mouth becoming taut, and her eyes narrowing at the young man standing opposite her. The lovely and beautiful flush in her cheeks had vanished, leaving nothing but anger, hidden behind a layer of smooth, unblemished, pale skin. Tai Yin adjusted her stance, glaring at Xuanyuan with a strange mixture of anger and curiosity in her eyes. Come over here and find out, Xuanyuan. Chapter 36 Sword in My Hand. Published by Web Novel. The rank 3 Ji Yu master referee sent the 2 rank 2 Ji Yu masters standing opposite each other a hard glare, before raising his arm above his head. Despite this only being a match between two rank 2 GU masters, he could feel the waves of dark red primeval essence and scarlet red primeval essence churn from within them. He knew that Tai Yin was the daughter of Elder Tai, a rather lascivious and easygoing elder, and that in terms of martial arts, she was equal to or exceeding those of a similar age to herself. Her grasp of the sword path was quite impressive as well, but nothing particularly monstrous or incomprehensible. On the other hand, Xuanyuan, no family name, was the personal disciple of Elder Luo, the elder in charge of Earth Soul Hall. He was a kind, yet strict elder who took the safety and well-being of mortals and disciples of the Earth Soul sect seriously. Elder Luo was a rank 5 space path GU master, while Xuanyuan was a rank 2 shadow path GU master. He had seen Xuanyuan act in his first bout, and knew for sure that even he might not have reacted quick enough to save Yu Xiaolong. He almost didn't notice the shadows beneath him warp and form a network of near invisible strings, and could count on his hand the number of GU masters he knew who walked the shadow path. Gong Shu cursed his luck reading his own GU to act if the event arose. Letting out one last breath, he swung his hand down, indicating the start of the bout. Begin. Xuanyuan gazed at his opponent, still glaring at him hatefully for his earlier comment. Xuanyuan was an adult in the body of a teen, his pride flexible and personality blasé to most remarks or methods of slander. Tai Yin was a beautiful young woman with an exceptional background and sufficient strength to match that of disciples several years older than her. Even if she knew pain, even if she knew hardship, Xuanyuan doubted that she had ever been called weak before. She was smart and knew what type of person her father was. He loved beautiful young women after all. She didn't want to be compared to those women her father kept at his side, to end up like that herself one day. She knew that in other continents, like the northern plains, women were commodities in society. Her greatest source of pride was her own strength. Damaging her pride, by calling her weak, was a great way to test the waters. Tai Yin gritted her teeth before waving her arm and summoning a GU. In an instant, a long, 5-foot length, 3-finger-wide lawnsword appeared in her hands. Each side was sharp, and the tip even more so. The light from the sun above them shone on the blade, causing Xuanyuan to frown for a moment. Tai Yin let out a small breath, thin breaths of qi leaving her lips and gathering around her sword. The floating wisps of sword qi swirled around the blade like butterflies around a flower, and the young girl stepped forward, slowly closing the distance between herself and Xuanyuan. Xuanyuan didn't say anything, only waving his hand slightly and producing a dense shadow blade. The palm-sized blade of shadow cut through the air at a speed exceeding his earlier movement, appearing in front of Tai Yin in a flash. The girl's eyes seemed to flicker for a moment before she sliced through the air in front of her, cutting straight through the dense shadow blade. The projectile, like flickering shadows, faded within mere moments of being struck down. Rank 2 Lawnsword GU and Rank 2 Sword Breath GU. Isn't this a little bit too much? She already has 2 Rank 2 GU, and it's completely possible that she might have. Xuanyuan's train of thought was cut off right there, as he felt a gust of wind brush right past his body. Through his 9-eyes shadow GU he could see Tai Yin's figure standing behind him, arm raised, poised to strike. Shadows as thought GU produced dozens of shadow thoughts in that moment, causing Xuanyuan to activate silhouette strings GU, shadow stinger GU and shadow qi GU. The shape of his shadow flickered, as dozens upon dozens of tiny shadow strings appeared all around Xuanyuan. The otherworldly demon took a step back, flexing his 5-meter-long scorpion stinger shooting out towards Tai Yin. The girl in question narrowing her eyes, flicking between Xuanyuan's enormous scorpion tail and the dense network of strings placed around him. Pausing her advance, Tai Yin flicked her free hand sending several sword shadows towards Xuanyuan. More wisps of shadow thoughts rose up from the depths of Xuanyuan's shadow, immediately informing him to avoid the oncoming projectiles. Sidestepping left and right, Tai Yin's eyes widened as she saw the refined movement techniques that Xuanyuan was using. He's been a GU master for a year now, and yet his footwork is almost as good as mine is. TCH, so this is what father meant by genius. Tai Yin knew that Xuanyuan exceeded herself when it came to innate GU master talent, but had yet to comprehend the difference between comprehension and understanding. She knew that GU refinement and nurturing was difficult, but that could be said for all GU masters. She had been trained from a young age in martial arts, and in her knowledge about GU, as well as different beasts and mutated beasts. What she didn't understand was how knowledge, experience, theorizing and subsequently proving those theories led to an increase in attainment. Tai Yin dodged another dense shadow blade, watching as Xuanyuan anticipated her movements, forcing her to use her rank 2 vanishing wind GU once more. The GU practically guaranteed her evasion, but at a high primeval essence cost. This turtle shell idiot, I can't get close to him. Not to mention, that Xuanyuan himself neglected to refine any method of proper hand-to-hand combat. As a GU immortal, or even a rank 5 GU master, Xuanyuan didn't plan on following such a thing, especially when he knew that other GU masters could be much better than him. While others could waste their time on refining their martial arts, Xuanyuan would better spend his time refining GU. Xuanyuan narrowed his eyes for a moment, before dismissing his silhouette strings GU. His shadow flickered before being absorbed back into itself, returning back to the darker color it was previously. His large scorpion stinger was raised above his head, poised and ready to strike at Tai Yin. He wouldn't get anywhere just trading blows from afar with her, while his primeval essence C was larger than her own. With just quality alone, Tai Yin exceeded himself by 2 small realms. She would win a war of attrition. Seeing his silhouette strings vanish, Tai Yin narrowed her eyes, not responding as she sent 2 more sword shadows towards Xuanyuan. Enhanced by sword breath GU, the flickering sword shadows didn't even make so much as a sound as they sliced through the air, rushing just by Xuanyuan. The otherworldly demon just smiled, shaking his head at his opponent. Rank 1 sword shadow GU, rank 2 lawnsword GU, rank 2 sword breath GU, even rank 2 vanishing wind GU. I know that the sword path possesses extraordinary offensive capabilities, but just those sword shadows were enough to kill a man. Got any other tricks up your sleeve, little Yin? Tai Yin clenched her teeth at Xuanyuan, sending another barrage of sword shadows at him. Despite being a rank 1 GU, using the rank 1 GU so many times in such a quick succession eventually drained the girl of more than half of her primeval essence. She just watched as Xuanyuan shook his head, smiling at her. You can't even touch my shadow, little Yin. How can you expect to cut me with such a weak sword? In the audience, Tai Yong furrowed his brows and clenched his fist. He knew that his sister knew it was just a provocation. It was just a ploy to get her angry, but still, he knew his sister's pride better than anyone else in the arena. Don't fall for it, Yin. Don't. You know better, he thought. Elder Tai raised an eyebrow in the elder's box, sending a shrug towards the other elders. The girl wants to be strong. If she cannot resist the temptation, then she is as Xuanyuan says. I have high hopes for her in Yang, and even if they cannot compare to Elder Luo's little monster, she will become an excellent sword for the sect. Xuanyuan gazed at Tai Yin, walking towards her slowly. If he wanted to win, he had to do it instantly. There was no messing around testing the depth of the other person. He would win this in a single strike. If her sword became clouded by anger, by rage or by hate, then Xuanyuan might have a single moment to react. The sword is unyielding. The sword is decisive. The sword pierces and cuts. The sword is a tool. Xuanyuan gazed at Tai Yin, her bright blue eyes meeting his dark black ones. His breath was measured, smooth, and calm. He could see the rise and fall of her chest, the small layer of sweat on her brow. Even if she wasn't exhausted physically, Xuanyuan could see his words piercing through her, directly at her heart. The sword is just a tool. It obeys the swing of its wielder, an extension of their resolve. If there is no sword in your heart, little Yin, how can you expect to protect yourself from being cut? Tai Yin gritted her teeth, almost snarling at Xuanyuan. What do you know? You know nothing of my resolve, nothing of my past, nothing of what I have fought tooth and nail for in order to obtain. You're a genius, even more so than anyone in this room. Attainment and comprehension comes to you as surely as the sun is to rise east. And my sword is righteous, my sword is sharp, my sword is here in my hand. Tai Yin narrowed her eyes at Xuanyuan, raising her sword and pointed it directly at him. If I have a sword in my hand, then it doesn't matter how many times I must strike you Xuanyuan. Once, twice, thrice, even 1,000 times if I must. With a sword in my hand, I will cut a path of my own to follow. In the audience, the sect leader, Elder Kong, as well as the 3 hidden GU immortals showed a strange expression, each of them glancing to the other. Elder Kong glanced at the sect leader, but the latter showed no change in expression as he watched Tai Yin on the stage. Immortal Chu let out a sigh, leaning back in his seat. Xuanyuan's understanding of the sword path exceeds her own. If there is no sword in your heart, how can you expect to protect yourself from being cut? Even if he has no attainment in the sword path, just understanding that alone would allow Xuanyuan to reach a level of master right. Immortal D beside him nodded. Perhaps, but still, a sword in one's hand is a better foundation than a sword in one's heart. If there is no room to grow, then how can they reach the zenith of a path with such a fundamental flaw in their understanding? Immortal Song glanced at the two before returning her gaze back towards the fight. She was interested in Xuanyuan when she heard that he managed to complete 2 incomplete Shadow Path GU recipes, even more so when she saw the recipe for his 9 Eyes Shadow GU. After realizing the depth and breadth of her knowledge, even she felt envious of a rank 2 GU master. If I had half, or even a quarter of his comprehension, it might not have taken me so long to become a GU immortal. Additionally, I might have actually refined an immortal GU during my immortal ascension. Xuanyuan raised an eyebrow before shaking his head. Without a sword in your heart, Tai Yin, how can you expect to refine yourself when facing adversity? How can you expect to cut through to the heart of your opponent, if your own heart is beaten and battered under my words? How can you expect to reach the zenith of the sword, if there is nothing there to dream? Xuanyuan's words became more and more heated as he spoke. His normally calm and collected demeanor shattered as his voice grew louder and louder. Your sword is weak, your resolve brittle. How can you desire to become stronger, without strength of will, without strength of heart flowing through your veins? I told everyone before, didn't I? Xuanyuan smacked his chest loudly, so loud he almost didn't notice everything in the arena was silent. Everyone, regardless of whether they were in this batch of disciples, the rank 3 GU master referees, the audience in the stands or the elders sitting and watching above, watched Xuanyuan roar at Tai Yin. The girl clenched her fist tightly around the hilt of her blade, and screamed back at Xuanyuan. Greater men and women than you have tried reaching rank 9 Xuanyuan. In 3 million years, less than a dozen have achieved such a thing. And you think that you have what it takes to become? Yes, yes I do, Xuanyuan shouted, interrupting Tai Yin's words. The emotion in his voice caused it to crack, making his face seem redder than usual. The expression on his face was raw, eyes wide but brows furrowed. I don't care if the odds are against me. I don't care if there are others, more righteous, more demonic, more worthy than I don't care if there is someone whose comprehension and understanding exceeds my own. I want it. Xuanyuan smiled, his expression honest and forthright. A few girls in the audience blushed, seeing his true smiling expression, but the young man just kept going. I want it, more than anything else in the world. I seek knowledge, understanding, truth. With shadows in one hand, I will obscure the heavens and the earth. Elder Kong unconsciously sat up more straight, and Immortal Chu leaned in a little bit more hearing his words. While not the same, they were quite similar to something else that they were anticipating. Xuanyuan stood just a few meters away from Tai Yin, seeing her expression still fierce and unyielding. Smiling, he said. Even if I have to fight dirty to get there. And the arena was illuminated in a searing red light. Chapter 37 Sword in My Heart. Published by Web Novel. Tai Yin swiftly covered her eyes with her free arm. The huge burst of searing red light that Xuanyuan emitted burned the skin on her hands and neck, directly exposed to the light of the bright red light GU. While the GU couldn't do anything but give minor burns to those close to the source of the light, Xuanyuan wasn't counting on that singular effect against Tai Yin. Waving his palm several times in quick succession, Xuanyuan sent out a flurry of dense shadow blades towards Tai Yin. The girl, who had raised her free arm to block the direct burst of light from Xuanyuan, felt the hairs on her neck raise, using her vanishing wind GU to dodge to the side. However, that didn't stop Xuanyuan from closing the distance, his enormous scorpion stinger raised, enhanced by his rank 1 shadow chi GU and touched by the small effects of his rank 2 bright red light GU. Tai Yin barely had any time to raise her sword to block the strike before her eyes widened, unconsciously reaching towards her sword shadow GU to send out another barrage of sword shadows. Tai Yin barely had any time to react as Xuanyuan's shadow stinger phased perfectly through her sword, and directly towards her shadow. She could almost see in slow motion as Xuanyuan's shadow struck her own, immediately sending enormous force through her upper body. To her own credit, Tai Yin didn't lose consciousness or drop her sword, suppressing the air being forced out of her lungs and flicking her free hand towards Xuanyuan. She could see it in his eyes that he anticipated more sword shadows, the dark spheres in his shadow rippling and pulsating as if it were a living being all on its own. She felt her eyes widen as he extended his hands out, the air rippling slightly as her sword shadows were all brushed aside, some invisible pressure pushing aside her sword shadows. Her gaze lingered on Xuanyuan's hands before she let out a scream, slashing out towards him. For a single moment, Xuanyuan felt surprised. He didn't expect Elder Tai to go to such lengths for his daughter. He was quite the prolific and lascivious man, but his position was constantly scrutinized in the face of the other elders. Xuanyuan knew from Elder Luo that Elder Tai was probably one of the strongest rank 5 GU masters in the entire ancient soul sect. And with immense strength, often came immense wealth. As the elder who oversaw the primeval essence springs belonging to the ancient soul sect, the sheer number of primeval essence stones that he had access to was beyond imagination. Xuanyuan almost didn't see what happened. He blinked and unconsciously activated his 9 Eyes Shadow GU and shadows as thoughts GU before his entire upper body bent backwards, as far as it could possibly stretch. If it wasn't for his 9 Eyes Shadow GU, Xuanyuan definitely would have missed it. A large crescent-shaped sword G was released from Tai Yin's long sword GU. The sword G was several meters wide, as thick as an adult man's thigh. It hummed slightly as it cut through the air, causing the color to drain out of Xuanyuan's face. The crescent-shaped sword G practically flickered through the air, one moment appearing directly in front of Xuanyuan, and the next, crashing into the other side of the arena, causing all eyes not already on their fight to move towards Tai Yin and Xuanyuan. A few of the older GU masters felt their mouths drop, seeing a rank 3 GU used in this new disciple tournament. A few more observant GU masters even noticed that Xuanyuan managed to dodge it in time, avoiding a strike that certainly would have fatal. That could have. Xuanyuan furrowed his brows, catching himself with his hands and leaping backwards. The expression on his face was cold, unlike the heated and emotional display he showed earlier. He didn't even so much as hesitate before sprinting at Tai Yin, the girl gritting her teeth and slashing her sword, sending wave after wave of sword shadow towards him. Xuanyuan brushed whatever got to close away with push GU, and suppressed a wince whenever his arms or legs were sliced by her sword shadows. Extending his arm and swinging it forward, Xuanyuan reached into his scorpion stinger and pulled out a sword of his own, causing Tai Yin's and everyone else in the audience to gasp as the sound of steel colliding against steel echoed out. Tai Yin didn't expect the sword to be solid, and she unconsciously turned her head, only to be met with an invisible force colliding against her cheek. The girl heard a distinct crack echo throughout her head before her entire world turned black. She didn't even so much as utter a word, as her body was smashed into the ground, knocked unconscious by Xuanyuan's blow. The referee immediately appeared beside Tai Yin, picking her up before announcing the victor. Winner, Xuanyuan. The entire arena was silent, watching as Xuanyuan dropped his sword back into his shadow, walking off the stage towards Elder Bing. They all eyed the shadow which rippled beneath his feet, watching, eyeing it, trying to peer beneath the surface. Xuanyuan sent the audience a glance, causing them to focus back on the other matches. Sitting down in the bed beside Tai Yin's, he let out a small sigh, feeling his emotions calm back down. Single quote ... Crazy woman, using a rank 3 GU as a rank 2 GU master. A rank 3 offensive and ranged sword path GU. If it wasn't for shadows as thoughts GU, there is a chance that I might not have dodged that in time. Elder Bing should theoretically be able to heal him, and even if she wasn't able, there were 3 GU immortals in the crowd who might be capable, or know someone capable of doing such a thing. Being cut in half wasn't a good thing for a mortal, but for a GU master, it didn't necessarily mean death. Xuanyuan just watched Elder Bing as a soothing white light touched Tai Yin's head. He hit her with enough force to knock her unconscious, so it was very possible that he either fractured her skull, or shook her brain with enough strength to cause brain damage. This was a world where GU could transform men into women and humans into variant humans. Reversing something like that was relatively easy for those who specialized in healing. Xuanyuan felt a shadow enter range of observation, and opened his eyes to see Tai Yong standing at the foot of his sister's bed. Her twin brother had come over the moment the fight had been concluded, and just watched as Elder Bing slowly healed the wound on his sister's head. The older woman just smiled at him, shaking her head. She'll be fine, young man. Her skull was cracked open, but there was no damage to her brain. I imagine she might not be able to fight in the next round, which I suppose means that she will be forced to withdraw from the tournament however. Tai Yong frowned at that, before glancing over to Xuanyuan. The Fire Path GU master glared at the otherworldly demon, while the latter just shrugged, shaking his head. If you want to fight, you're going to have to wait your turn. Oh, and make sure that you use your rank 3 GU at the beginning of the fight. Your sister probably would have won if she hadn't held back. Tai Yong just smiled, shaking his head from side to side. My sister and I value honor above strength. You are a rank 2 middle stage GU master, while we are both rank 2 peak stage GU masters. With that alone, regardless of our background or our innate talents, she should have bested you. Instead, she was forced to use the GU that father had given us to push you into a corner, which failed obviously. You are strong, Xuanyuan. Your comprehension and attainment aside, your footwork is excellent and your reaction speed is. Did you use a GU for that? Honestly, I couldn't even tell, but it must be at least rank 2 for you to react to Yin's rank 3 crescent/GU. Was it your vital GU? I had a theory that you might have refined your vital GU to rank 2 already, perhaps some variant of Shadow Eyes GU which enhances your sight or increases the effectiveness of your eyes. Also, I was wondering about that sword which. Xuanyuan held up his hands and stared blankly, forcing Tai Yong to stop. The young man paused before showing a slightly embarrassed expression. Clearing his throat, the young man continued. My apologies. Usually my sister hits me before I get carried away, but considering her state, I do forget myself sometimes. What was I saying earlier? The shadow path. Why, if you do not mind, would you chose to walk such a path? In the scheme of things, it isn't the most developed path, nor has it produced GU immortals whose names have resounded throughout history. Elder Luo is an extremely capable space path GU master, not to mention Elder Hu and Elder Guo whom both favor you. Either of those 3 paths would be much more advantageous, allowing you to quickly close the gap between your attainment and your cultivation. Xuanyuan blinked a couple times before letting out a small chuckle. His actions caused Tai Yin to frown, and for him to hold up his hands, shaking his head. I mean no disrespect, only that I expected you to say something about avenging your sister's honor before stamping off back towards the audience. You are not exactly what I expected, Tai Yong. The boy in question raised an eyebrow. You mean a disrespectful second-generation young master? Something more along those lines? Xuanyuan nodded, not bothering to hide it. Tai Yong only straightened his back, rolling his eyes at the insinuation. I can assure you that while the likes of Huo Jin and Feng Kai have such a reputation, myself, my sister and Song Pei do not discriminate between mortal-born GU masters and those whom are born into wealth. My mother, or Yin's and I mother, was a mortal-born GU master, very much like yourself. She has raised us as members of the righteous path, whom consider all humans as equal, regardless of birth or background. My sister has an abrasive personality. While she does value honor above all, your fight was, well, you understand my meaning. Xuanyuan knew that he goaded Tai Yin into letting her guard down, and then used his bright red light GU to catch her off guard, gaining the upper hand. It was true that he was surprised by her rank 3 crescent/GU, but Shadows as thought GU allowed him to react within moments of it striking him. He was quite callous with his words earlier. Denying her path wasn't the most honorable of tactics. Even if Xuanyuan's words were true, considering their age and the fact that most were still developing themselves as GU masters, it might be enough to damage their pride or confidence to the point of them changing paths. If Tai Yin, someone who had affirmed herself as a sword path GU master, suddenly had a change of heart and decided to walk another path, then no doubt, Xuanyuan would probably be the reason. Tai Yong stared at Xuanyuan, forcing the otherworldly demon to return the look with a raised eyebrow. Is something the matter? Tai Yong opened his mouth but refrained from saying anything, just letting out a small sigh before shaking his head. Earlier, when you said that thing about the sword in my heart, do you also walk the sword path? You used that sword from earlier as well, so I just assumed that you walked both paths at once. I'm sure you know that you can only choose one after you become a GU immortal, right? Xuanyuan looked at Tai Yin before smiling, shaking his head. My grasp of the sword path only extends to what I have grasped from the legends of Renzu. I am not sure how many times you have read it, but I promise, the legends of Renzu hold so much knowledge and understanding that most GU masters ignore. Xuanyuan recounted the legends of Renzu. Renzu walked throughout purple heaven aimlessly, having gotten rid of shadow GU in the lightless abyss. Renzu, without his shadow, without his reflection, was only able to keep his physical body intact through self GU, who clutched at the 2 pieces of himself, keeping them together, keeping them sane. He wandered for days on end, questioning whether or not he made the right decision by abandoning his shadow, by abandoning his sun, black night eclipsing sky. What have I done? I regained my sanity through memory GU, but have no lost memory GU to the shadowless ocean. I wanted to reach the blue sea of life, but now I have nothing. Nothing but the 2 pieces of myself, struggling to remain together. Renzu had yet to heal the wound caused from the battle between self GU and shadow GU. Blood poured out endlessly, nurturing the perseverance in his heart. Eventually, Renzu approached a mountain, one whose peak pierced through the clouds, and whose very ore cut and sliced at Renzu's flesh and bones. Instinctively, Renzu knew this mountain as Dao Mountain, a sword which bridged the heavens and the earth. Dao Mountain refined endless GU, no matter the origin or the rarity of the material. Dao Mountain was a holy land of swords and blades. Renzu, self GU spoke, you have managed to find Dao Mountain. A sacred land of swords and blades. If you can obtain the powers of Dao Mountain, you should be able to heal the wounds that shadow GU inflicted on us. But how? Renzu replied, how is it possible for a mountain to heal the loss of my reflection? How can it help me regain my lost shadow? Self GU spoke to Renzu, telling him that if he refined himself using Dao Mountain, he would be able to repair the gap which shadow GU left behind. He would break himself, and then forge himself anew amidst the endless sea of swords. Afraid of the pain, Renzu initially refused, but eventually met a single GU whom came down from the mountain peak, speaking to him about the origins of the mountain. A GU whose very presence seemed to sever the sky and seas, split the earth in front of Renzu, embedding itself in the ground before him. Its voice boomed, cutting through truth and lies. Dao Mountain is not just the birthplace of swords, that right alone belongs to Tang Heaven. However, Dao Mountain can refine anything in the immemorial 9 heavens into a sword. Human, if you desire the strength, then ascend the mountain. If you possess regrets, then ascend the mountain. If you linger in the past, then ascend the mountain. The answers you seek will be revealed to you henceforth. This sword spoke to Renzu, communicating its intentions and meanings to him. I am HGU, the progenitor of all swords and blades. Each day I ascend the Dao Mountain, refining myself, refining my body, refining my heart, refining my soul. Human, born of flesh and blood, if you seek to make yourself whole once more, then walk upon my descendants. Let swords and blades slice and cut off everything unnecessary. Let swords and blades remove the excess and refine the essence. Let swords and blades pierce your very being, releasing your true self to the world. Xuanyuan smiled, eyeing Tai Yong. And as such, Renzu climbed Dao Mountain, cutting himself upon steel and iron, slicing off flesh and bone until there was nothing left but. Tai Yong furrowed his brows, muttering something under his breath. Nothing left but Renzu himself. The 16-year-old boy just shrugged his shoulders. It does not matter if there is a sword in my hand. I will cut away all excess with the sword in my heart. I am Xuanyuan, nothing more, nothing less. Chapter 38 Observations from Tai Yong. Published by Web Novel. Tai Yong just stared at Xuanyuan, muttering some words under his breath, over and over again in his mind. He knew better than most the complexities and the profundities hidden within the sword path, considering that his twin sister strove to become a sword path GU master. He probably even knew better than that other young man, Bing Ti, who also desired to walk the sword path, even though he himself walked the fire path. Tai Yong and his sister regularly discussed the nature of the path, hoping to understand some sort of hidden truth which could propel their attainment forward. The ancient sword sect didn't specialize in a single path like the Immortal Crane sect or the Heavenly Lotus sect. The Immortal Crane sect specialized in enslavement path techniques and to a lesser degree, cloud path and wind path. While the Heavenly Lotus sect, founded by Genesis Lotus Immortal Venerable, contained numerous inheritances relating to the wood path. The ancient soul sect had the advantage of having sole control over the earth abyss beneath their feet, not to mention the territory which extended several 100,000 miles in any direction. The earth abyss alone guaranteed earth path, dark path, blood path, soul path and even enslavement path GU and GU materials. There were also pockets of habitable space in the earth abyss, containing resource points of a myriad number of different paths. The most valuable were often transferred into the blessed lands of GU immortals, while those nascent resource points were nurtured carefully and protected by GU immortals. This didn't include the limitless inheritance that the sect was in possession of. This guaranteed GU masters from over half a dozen different paths. Easily accessible GU and GU materials allowed for a smoother cultivation, which is why the ancient soul sect encouraged their disciples to choose any singular path to cultivate. Even if only one in a generation became a GU immortal, their blessed land, and their knowledge would be passed down to the next generation. Tai Yong knew that his father had tried to convene with the fire path and sword path GU immortals belonging to the ancient soul sect, but neither had accepted Tai Yong or his sister as temporary disciples to help with their blessed lands. In fact, this tournament was supposed to help the two of them show off, so that Elder Tai could try and convince one of the other GU immortals to accept his children in their blessed lands for a year or two. Tai Yong was the more rational of the two Tai siblings. He was much more logical than his sister, and preferred to cloister himself away researching GU and GU materials like a scholar than train his martial arts or practice with his GU. Because of his father, he knew the importance of attainment at higher ranks, as well as the existence of Dao marks. He didn't think lesser of mortal-born GU masters, and admitted that he had an advantage over them, which is why he thought of himself as smarter and stronger than his peers, until he met Xuanyuan however. Let swords and blades slice and cut off everything unnecessary. Let swords and blades remove the excess and refine the core. Let swords and blades pierce your very being, releasing your true self to the world. It does not matter if there is a sword in my hand. I will cut away all excess with the sword in my heart. Tai Yong muttered those words, paralleling them to the fight that his sister had against Xuanyuan. Without a sword in your heart, Tai Yin, how can you expect to refine yourself when facing adversity? How can you expect to cut through to the heart of your opponent, if your own heart is beaten and battered under my words? How can you expect to reach the zenith of the sword, if there is nothing there to dream? It seemed so arbitrary. What did it mean to have a sword in one's heart? What did he mean by refining oneself in the face of adversity? Why was having a sword in one's heart so important if they wanted to reach the zenith of the sword? How was having a dream so important, that it affected the progression in one's heart? Was he talking about heart demons? During the mortal ascension, regrets and strong emotions can cause hallucinations and illusions to appear around oneself. Was that what he was referring to, or was it something else? He muttered. Tai Yong placed a hand over his heart, feeling the steady beat within his chest. There was a warmth there that had always been present, the warmth of touch, of life, of his own heart. Was there something within him too? Is there a fire in my heart? Does that what it means to comprehend a path? It's an abstract concept which a GU master has comprehended. No, if it was just that, then forget Xuanyuan, countless others would have become GU immortals long ago. There has to be something else. Tai Yong didn't even so much as flinch as he felt a hand drop down on his shoulder, causing him to snap out of his train of thought and gaze up at the owner of the hand. Seeing the familiar face, Tai Yong just nodded, seeing the other person sit down beside him. Is Tai Yin all right? The other person asked. Yeah, just a cracked skull. Nothing Elder Bing could not fix, he replied. The other young man just nodded, taking out a piece of fresh meat and throwing it towards his pet. The large, 5-meter-long crocodile snapped up the meat swiftly, devouring it before laying back down in a spot not obscured by shade. Most of the other GU masters gave the creature a wide berth, gazing at the beast with wide eyes and curious expressions. Song Pei let out a small sigh, smiling softly. That's good. She put up a good fight, but Elder Luo's disciple came in at the last moment. If it was anyone else, I don't think they would have been able to dodge such a strike, Song Pei said. The younger Tai sibling nodded and glanced at his friend. His gaze turned back to the arena, before focusing a single individual in the crowd. Quote. Xuanyuan, he isn't normal, he said. Song Pei turned and looked at his friend, watching his expression for a moment. How so? Tai Yong just sighed, shaking his head. I can guarantee that his attainment in the sword path must be higher than Yin's. He walks the shadow path earnestly, but if given the chance, I think he would be able to walk more than a single path beyond rank 5. The enslavement path GU master raised an eyebrow. The tone of his friend's voice was strange. So he is smart then? His comprehension is high, equal to that of his innate talent. That doesn't directly correlate to combat prowess or GU refinement. I admit, he is someone to be wary of, but he is not omnipotent Tai Yong. Tai Yong just shook his head once more, this time meeting his friend's gaze. The pair stared at each other for a moment, before Tai Yong gestured toward Xuanyuan. If there was someone destined to become a venerable, I think I would put my money on Xuanyuan. I don't know how he does it, luck, comprehension, or some other unfathomable ability, but I've never been intimidated by someone my own age before, until now. Song Pei traced Tai Yang's gaze, seeing Xuanyuan sit beside Yu Xiaolong and Lu Guo. The three were chatting, although Xuanyuan seemed quite calm and collected for someone who had just screamed their heart out earlier. Song Pei had heard the words that Xuanyuan spoke, about the sword in my heart, and dismissed most of it, citing it as rhetoric to force Tai Yin's heart to waver. It succeeded, which ultimately cost her the match. The enslavement path GU master turned back towards his friend, a distinct frown evident on his face. Are you serious? You're afraid of Xuanyuan? Tai Yong nodded. He isn't normal. He doesn't think the same way we do. He can see the world differently to us. We see light, darkness and shadows. He sees truth, profundities and knowledge. Seeing the world through the lens of a GU immortal as a GU master. That is how I would describe Xuanyuan. Song Pei seemed more interested in that description. He is Elder Luo's disciple. He probably knows about immortal GU and immortal ascension, as well as the importance of attainment and Dao marks. I wouldn't be surprised if Elder Luo or Elder Hu have told him about the abyssal child selection. He might have even come into contact with one of the sect's GU immortals, like we were. Tai Yong didn't say that he and Tai Yin weren't chosen, and just nodded to Song Pei. He trusted his friend, but if he was lying, Song Pei could very well be lying back to him as well. The abyssal child was simply a GU immortal seed, someone with a talent expected to reach rank 6. Even the strongest of grade talents were only expected to reach a peak of rank 4. They would need the help of GU, or an exorbitant number of primeval essence stones to reach rank 5. As the abyssal child, the entire sect would be open to them. GU and primeval essence stones were of no consequence. As such, they only needed to focus on strengthening their foundation for their immortal ascension. I heard that Huo Jin and Feng Kai were both rejected by GU immortals. Of all the other disciples in the sect, there are only 4 others who were considered candidates. Besides this and Xuanyuan, of course. Tai Yong raised an eyebrow. He hadn't heard this bit of information yet, probably due to the lack of response his father received from the Sky Soul Hall. Song Pei nodded. I don't know their names, but there is a candidate from Burning Soul Hall, one from Light Soul Hall, one from Strength Soul Hall, and the final candidate is from Golden Soul Hall. Each has a cultivation exceeding that of a rank 2 GU master, and everyone is 20 years old or younger. Tai Yong bit his lip, knowing that becoming a rank 3 GU master in under 5 years was no easy feat. Even if himself and his sister used relic GU to push themselves to the peak of rank 2, the others most certainly didn't. He considered that the deciding factor in him being a candidate for the next abyssal child, but could only let out a sigh, not having this information sooner. Someone like Xuan Yuan could become a rank 2 middle stage GU master in just under a year. Even if his cultivation slowed, there was a high chance that he would reach at least a rank 2 peak stage GU master cultivation in another year from now. With any luck, he would already be a rank 3 GU master. I wonder how the abyssal child will be chosen, Song Pei said to himself, tapping his chin. Tai Yong glanced at his friend shaking his head. My father told me that in the generation before his, the abyssal child was chosen by one of the sect's rank 8 GU immortals in some sort of inheritance. One of the founders of the sect, or a former powerhouse with close ties to the ancient soul sect. Song Pei nodded, the young man hearing his name being called, forcing him to stand up and stretch his legs slightly. Looking at his friend, he patted him on the shoulder, smiling at him. Anyway, wish me luck, and if either of us get chosen to fight Xuan Yuan, make sure to fight him in an extended battle. In terms of primeval essence, neither of us can lose. Tai Yong stared at his friend for a moment before smiling and shaking his head. It felt sore from doing it so many times today, but he did it again for good measure. He watched as Song Pei and his crocodile beast walk down to the arena, towards a rank 1 GU master whose name escaped them both. Good luck, he muttered. His gaze swiftly moved away from Song Pei and back towards Xuan Yuan. What is the fire path? How would Xuan Yuan explain the fire path? Should I ask him? He thought. Chapter 39 Characteristics. Published by Web Novel. Xuan Yuan had 2 more bouts, both times against rank 1 GU masters. The 2 that he fought seemed quite scared as they walked up onto the stage against Xuan Yuan, especially considering that he had injured all of his previous opponents before they could forfeit or declare their own surrender. Neither were anything special, both in regards to the GU they used, or in the way that they used them. Neither had enough variety of GU to create a combat system around them, and could only use the GU in a straightforward manner. Sitting back down in his chair, Xuan Yuan could see that some of the B-grade talents that once littered the seats around him had vanished, leaving the arena. Those were mostly rank 1 GU masters that had opted to continue fighting even without primeval essence, but were forced to the Light Soul Hall when Elder Bing stopped healing them, reserving her primeval essence for more serious cases. There was a young man with a sprained wrist from a fall who was refused healing, but stayed despite the fact that he was injured and without primeval essence. He was forced to fight Song Pei, and immediately forfeited, much to the ire of several other GU masters. If you can't fight then just leave, you'll end up losing every match. Talk about shameless, he's lost every fight since his first one, expending all of his primeval essence in a single fight, and yet, he refuses to leave. Is he a GU master, or a mortal martial artist? How did he even use up all his primeval essence in a single match? Apparently his vital GU is a wisdom path GU which lets him predict his opponent's movements. It expends primeval essence per second, making it extremely effective, but extraordinarily draining. Xuan Yuan ignored all of the comments about the young man, and just glanced at him, nodding somewhat. He had a short physique, an average-looking face and nothing that appeared extraordinary, but his expression was somewhat blank. Even as he walked by other disciples who jeered at him, watching him forfeit within moments of the fight starting, he just sat back down in his seat and waited for his name to be called. The rules of the tournament were somewhat confusing, considering that it essentially forced others to surrender on their own, continuously calling out their name until one party decided to leave the arena. Theoretically, someone could be missing an arm and still participate in the next match, despite their injuries. The tournament would be unfair to those who managed to obtain relic GU, or liquor worms to assist in cultivation, considering they could defeat any opponent just by last longer than them. The victor of the tournament was the one who accumulated the most wins, not how many matches they could fight. So long as you stayed in the tournament long enough for even those rank 2 GU masters to run out of primeval essence, you could fight them again and again with just martial arts. If Xuan Yuan was injured at this point, he would be forced to retire, or continue fighting regardless of his injuries. Xuan Yuan smiled watching a rank 1 GU master exit the arena. In the end, it all comes down to perseverance, he muttered. Xuan Yuan thought it was funny, but just ignored it, opting to watch the other fights. Tai Yin was unfortunately forced to retire from the tournament, still unconscious after the bout with Xuan Yuan. Tai Yong, Song Pei and Feng Kai all won every one of their bouts, Song Pei still possessing the greatest advantage as an enslavement path GU master. Jia Yufei, Li Shaoer and Yu Xiaolan also won all of their fights, while Lu Guo lost one of his fights, coincidentally, against Jia Yufei. Lu Guo wanted to walk the sword path, but was forced by his older sister to walk the lightning path just as she did. Yu Xiaolong and Lu Guo had that in common, so it was easy to talk them both, even if his attainment in the lightning path was non-existent. Lu Guo's match against Jia Yufei lasted only about 100 seconds considering her rank 2 Firefox GU could track the movements of her opponents to a degree. It was possible to destroy the pale blue fox fire, but only another rank 2 GU could do such a thing, or a rank 1 GU enhanced several times over. Such a thing would require numerous GU working in tandem, like Xuan Yuan's 9 Eyes Shadow GU which passively enhanced all GU which could be channeled, or manipulated his shadow, or Shadow Chi GU which actively enhanced all Shadow Path GU. Even then, Xuan Yuan didn't think that just those two alone would be enough to destroy one of Jia Yufei's foxfires. Xuan Yuan wanted to get his hands on other GU such as Shadow Soul GU, or Shadowless Veins GU, both of which increase the effectiveness of GU of an equal or lower rank. Xuan Yuan also wanted to explore if it was possible for a GU to change the color of his shadow, like how bright red light GU added a searing effect to shadows that it cast, and how Crimson Shadow GU theoretically transformed the nature of a shadow to make it more offensive. There was a difference between one-time use GU and other GU which Xuan Yuan also wanted to explore. These GU often provided powerful effects, and did not require primeval essence in order to be used. Someone just needed to absorb it, crush it or eat it in order for its effects to take root in the body. Ice Muscles GU and J-Bones GU were both examples of this, but so was Wolf Soul GU, Guts GU and even something like Lifespan GU and Dogshit Luck GU. GU whose very nature was to permanently transform something, or at least until they reached the next rank. The difference between GU such as these, and the Sovereign Immortal Fetus GU was that it did not transform the body, but rather create a perfect body which was not tied to fate GU in any way shape or form. It possessed uniquely formed Dao marks which did not reject one another, allowing a GU immortal to walk as many paths as they possibly could. Such a thing beyond Xuan Yuan's comprehension. Perhaps if he could reach the same level of attainment as Spectral Soul Demonic Venerable, that is, a great grandmaster in every path, he could begin to understand the underlying principles and profundities in the immortal GU. Xuan Yuan supposed that if he could get his hands on Derivation GU, he would be able to use it to deduce the Sovereign Immortal Fetus GU, but even then, it took Shadow Sect and Spectral Soul Demonic Venerable 100,000 years to create. And even then, it still needed to devour blessed lands and grotto heavens in order to sustain itself. What Xuan Yuan was interested in wasn't necessarily the Sovereign Immortal Fetus GU itself, but the method to create an extreme physique, and the method to create non-conflicting Dao marks. Both required the human path in order to be comprehended, which then required someone to nurture humans and variant humans outside of the influence of fate. In other words, in a blessed land or grotto heaven. He wanted something like Accumulate Virtue GU, albeit without the stringent requirements. Xuan Yuan let out a small sigh, not caring that Yu Xiaolong was sitting next to him. The other boy glanced at Xuan Yuan, seeing his lazy posture and bored expression. Is there something the matter, Xuan Yuan? You bored or something? He asked. Xuan Yuan just shook his head, letting out another sigh. I am interested in too many things, Xiaolong. Things would be so much easier if I could get a second aperture GU. Yu Xiaolong's eyes bulged for a moment, hearing the name of a legendary immortal GU. For most GU masters, immortal GU were out of reach, but as members of the 10 great sects, Yu Xiaolong had heard rumors and stories from some of the older disciples about others who had tried to search for God in blessed lands or explore some ancient inheritance. Legendary GU from the legends of Renzu were often used as the treasure at the end of the story, but the second aperture GU was a close second. Yu Xiaolong glanced at Xuanyuan unconsciously, lowering his voice and whispering something. Did Elder Luo tell you that the sect was in possession of a second aperture GU? Is that a prize available for first place or something? Xuanyuan laughed, waving his friend off. Of course not. If the ancient soul sect actually had a second aperture GU, it would have been used a long time ago. I was just saying that if they did actually have one, even the recipe for one, I'd fight tooth and nail for the chance to use it. Yu Xiaolong remained silent at those words, letting out a sigh of relief. For a second there, I actually thought you meant it. If the ancient soul sect had a second aperture GU in its possession, I think the rest of the 10 great sects would try and start a war just to try and obtain it and the recipe for it. A familiar sounding voice cut through the conversation. Start a war over what, sorry? Xuanyuan suppressed an eye roll, and Yu Xiaolong turned his head towards the young man approaching them. Tai Yong, having just completed his most recent bout, sat in the seat 2 across from Xuanyuan, causing the otherworldly demon to glance at him, before closing his eyes, just opting to listen to the names being called out. The Fire Path GU master extended his hand towards Yu Xiaolong, who just took it, the pair slightly bowing to each other. I saw your fight from earlier, Yu Xiaolong. Your speed is quite remarkable, as expected from someone who walks the lightning path. The lightning path GU master in question just responded with a nod, giving Tai Yong a small smile. Not quite as effective as your Fire Cloak GU, but it still gets the job done. The area of effect on Fire Path GU is often larger than that of most other paths, so just walking up to your opponent is often enough to defeat them, right? Tai Yong just nodded, glancing at Xuanyuan, who had his eyes closed at the moment. The young man, not at all noticing Xuanyuan's desire not to be talked to, just continued to speak, the conversation completely one-sided. If I may be so bold, Xuanyuan, I had a question about the shadow path. Not why you chose to walk it, or chose it over the space path or the dark path, but rather, what makes shadows different to darkness. The dark path has significant offensive power, and an equally effective obscuration and concealment abilities. The shadow path, from what I have observed, is illusory. It more often than not does not possess tangible form and instead is more effective against other shadows. Your shadow scorpion stinger is evidence of this, while your shadow strings and your dense shadow blade GU directly target the physical body. I assumed that you were using some sort of shadow path supportive type GU to enhance their effectiveness, but when I saw your fight with Yin, I could see that your bright red light GU enhanced your shadow scorpion stinger as well as your dense shadow blade GU. I was wondering, can the shadow path mimic the effects of the fire path? Can shadows inherently have fire-like qualities, such as hot, burning, warmth, or even destruction? Xuanyuan opened his eyes, glancing at Tai Yong but not moving his head. He stared at the slightly younger boy before shaking his head, letting out another sigh. Shadows can be affected by the light and darkness which created them. Bright red light GU is an example of this, but to answer your last question, yes, it is possible for one path, not just the shadow path, to mimic the path of another, for example the fire path. The easiest way to achieve this is to become a grandmaster in the shadow path. Yu Xiaolong saw Tai Yang's face become somewhat uncomfortable with that thought, realizing the immense difficulty behind it. Another way is to become proficient in both paths, although, needless to say, that comes with its own difficulties. But theoretically, shadows carry some of the traits of their reflection. At least, those living beings with Dao marks at least. Even if we, as humans, do not carry innate Dao marks like the 10 extreme physiques, or variant humans, we can transform ourselves in order to enhance those blank features. Ice Muscles GU and Jade Bones GU, Wolf Soul GU and Shadow Soul GU, Inferno Blood GU and Cloudwater Blood GU, Flower Heart GU and Swift Wind Lungs GU. All of these GU are from different paths, and yet they can enhance our mundane qualities beyond that of any mortal limits. Humans do not carry qualities such as Ice Muscles, or Cloudwater Blood, yet we can with GU. If you were to think of the human body as a GU with the ability to take the abilities of other GU, then yes, it should be possible. Something like shadows can gain the characteristics of fire, water can gain the characteristics of blood, and humans can gain the characteristics of a myriad paths. Humans are considered GU materials after all. Xuanyuan paused for a moment, blinking multiple times. Wait, what did I just say? Chapter 40: The Body as an Incomplete GU Recipe. Published by Web Novel. Yu Xiaolong and Tai Yong both watched Xuanyuan suddenly open his eyes and stand up. Despite the fact that the former tried to wave his hands in front of Xuanyuan's face, nothing could change his wide-eyed, almost flabbergasted expression. The otherworldly demon felt his mouth hit the floor the moment those words left his lips. He didn't even realize what he was saying, until it left his mouth, unknowingly comprehending something about the nature of humans. Humans are GU refinement materials, that much is certain. Humans can be used to refine GU, just as GU can be used to refine humans. Not just in a sense that humans are simply GU materials, but rather, likening the human body to that of an incomplete GU recipe, and using supplementary GU to push the incomplete GU recipe in a certain direction. I don't mean something like the immortal sovereign fetus GU which creates another physical body, considering that particular GU uses human bodies, or the 10 extreme physiques as GU refinement materials. What I mean is like how battlefield killer moves are considered incomplete GU recipes. Instead of using GU to engrave temporary Dao marks into an environment, I should just complete the recipe and use the end result to enhance the body. This is different from Ice Muscles GU or Jade Bones GU. What I want is closer to the 10 extreme physiques. Those effects are permanent, regardless of the rank of the GU master. I want to enhance what I currently have to the level of a 10 extreme physique, like the Accumulate Virtue GU. Considering the body as a battlefield killer move, I will complete the incomplete GU recipe, and the end result should become a permanent method of enhancement. The temporary Dao marks should become permanent, enhancing my physique to a level closer to the 10 extreme physiques. There is only one problem. Conflicting Dao marks, Xuanyuan muttered. Xuanyuan would theoretically have the same level of affinity between himself and a particular path, but he wouldn't have the ability to use any GU without worrying about his Dao marks conflicting against each other. Not to mention, it wouldn't have the same level of affinity that the sovereign immortal body did with every path. Xuanyuan didn't need to have Dao marks from every path available to him, but limiting himself to just a single path wouldn't allow him to fight monsters like Duke Long, Feng Zhuzhe, Zuo Yiwei or Di Zhangsheng in the future. Duke Long, for example, was a dragon man, a variant human race which possessed innate enslavement path Dao marks. As the creator of the dragon men, he also possessed a foundation in the human path, which focused on the creation of human vessels. Additionally, he was a chi path GU immortal, with an extremely deep foundation in the transformation path. While Duke Long was someone that Xuanyuan might potentially have to go against in the future, he possessed significant depth in numerous different paths. There was also his knowledge of the time path, as the Dao guardian of Red Lotus, but Xuanyuan wasn't sure how deep this foundation went. That at the very least, was 2 paths, and given his knowledge of the man, was possibly 5 paths that he possessed grandmaster level attainment in. Not to mention Feng Yuan, Giant Sun or Star Constellation. If Xuanyuan wanted to become venerable, he would inevitably go against most of these individuals, if not all of them. Xuanyuan just stared in front of him, unblinking and unmoving, shadows as thought GU unconsciously activating, causing a certain GU immortal in the crowd to peer at him, eyebrows raised. I can feel the aura of a rank 5 shadow path, GU on Xuanyuan. If it was in his primeval essence, there is no way to hide such a thing from immortal Chu. It must be hidden within his shadow. Immortal saw-eyed Xuanyuan, a much more interested smile marring her face. Numerous shadow thoughts bubbled up like sea foam from within Xuanyuan's mind. The human body could be considered an incomplete GU recipe. It was essentially a GU which could take on the characteristics of other GU. There was some sort of similarity between the human body and the immortal GU, self-GU, but Xuan Yuan currently wasn't qualified to judge how the two were related. The average body a GU master was a battlefield killer move. The engraved fragments of Dao marks might not lose their effect, but in comparison to the fragments of rank 3, rank 4 and even rank 5 GU their current strength would be insufficient in comparison to the whole Dao marks of the extreme physiques. They then required the same GU of a higher rank in order to keep up with the temporarily engraved Dao marks. There was a possibility of those Dao marks conflicting. If Xuan Yuan were to use a rank 2 copper shadow bones GU and then a rank 3 verdant oak bones GU, the conflicting Dao marks could possibly lead to spontaneous self-combustion. Even if Xuan Yuan rose from rank 3 to rank 4, he didn't want to lose the effects of this physique-related GU. Theoretically it should be possible, especially after Feng Yuan created mortal level second aperture GU, however. Xuan Yuan bit his lip. The end result GU would most likely be rank 6, meaning, an immortal GU. I don't have the knowledge, or the understanding to create higher rank GU. And even if I had the attainment, I don't have the resources, or the cultivation to attempt such a thing. That was Xuan Yuan's biggest problem. All of these things would make Xuan Yuan stronger in the long run once he completed his immortal ascension. However, he would need to become a rank 6 GU immortal in order to obtain everything first. The secrets of the human body, beyond that of strength, blood, souls, bones and shadows. Xuan Yuan wanted the knowledge and profundities of the human path, specifically, the knowledge that the shadow sect was in possession of. Something flashed within Xuan Yuan's eyes for a moment but disappeared quickly in the presence of others. He could feel the slightest increase to his attainment in the human path, but nothing substantial, or even particularly noteworthy in comparison to most other paths. The profundities of the human path were too much for a rank 2 GU master to understand. The most effective method of increasing his attainment was to prove his conjectures and theories. Even then, however, Xuan Yuan didn't have an idea on how to complete the incomplete GU recipe that was his body. Sitting back down, Xuan Yuan glanced at Yu Xiaolong and Tai Yang, both of whom noticed that Xuan Yuan was responding to them. The otherworldly demon just stared at his friend and acquaintance, giving them both a small nod. My apologies, I lost myself there for a second. What were we talking about again? Yu Xiaolong and Tai Yang shared a look before the latter nodded, asking another question. You were saying that the human body is essentially a GU which can absorb or devour the characteristics of other GU. You were talking about ice muscles GU and J bones GU in particular, but I failed to understand how this is different to the transformation path. Xuan Yuan shook his head, complete rejecting Tai Yang's words. No. The transformation path transforms both the physical body and related Dao marks into the physical body and Dao marks of a beast, most of the time. Transformation path beasts are extraordinarily rare, especially after the death of reckless savage demonic Venerable. Transformation path is also dangerous considering that if you remain transformed for too long, it is possible that a GU master can permanently become that beast. What I am talking about, Tai Yang, is the nature of the human body. Consider the current method that we use GU as a battlefield killer move in that we temporarily engrave Dao marks into our bodies. Ice muscles GU and J bones GU. When we increase our rank, the fragments of Dao marks we have in our body become insufficient, not working with GU equal to that of our new rank. A battlefield killer move is considered an incomplete GU recipe. If we can complete the GU recipe, then surely, we can create a GU which replicates all the effects of a multitude of GU, and with a much more permanent effect. Yu Xiaolong's mouth dropped, while Tai Yang's eyes widened. The elder descendant suppressed a gulp before shaking his head. But, wouldn't the effect be weaker? Not to mention, how would you even go about transforming a physical body to such an extent? What you're suggesting, Xuan Yuan, or how you're suggesting it, sounds as though you want to become a variant human. Xuan Yuan let out a sigh, waving his friend off. It would be interesting, but that is not what I want. What I want, Tai Yang, is a method to enhance a physique towards something similar to the 10 extreme physiques. A surefire method to increase the effectiveness of GU, and then use ice muscles GU and J bones GU to further increase myself. Some of the extreme physiques increase the effectiveness of multiple paths. Why is this? They possess Dao marks from similar, possibly compatible paths, indicating that there is a level of harmony or synergy between the formation of their Dao marks. Why does the blazing glory brilliant lightning physique increase the effectiveness of both the lightning path and the fire path while the great strength true martial physique only increases the effectiveness of the strength path? What is the difference between the two? Why is it that some extreme physiques are better than others? Why do they encompass multiple paths? A GU immortal can only possess a single path, but why can an extreme physique encompass two different paths? This is something that I do not understand. Now, the dark path, the sword path, the emotion path, the wind path. None of these paths possess a corresponding physique, do they? Why not? If it is possible for the strength path and the wood path, then why not the others? Why not the shadow path? Xuan Yuan leaned towards Tai Yang, a smile marring his expression. The young man seemed odd and slightly scared of the expression on Xuan Yuan's face. Your sister is a sword path GU master, Tai Yang. Imagine, if there was a GU which could birth an extreme physique. It isn't anything that heaven defying. They already exist, so why can't I make one? Tai Yang stood up and took a couple steps back. He gathered his emotions, suppressing them, shaking his head firmly. That's impossible, Xuan Yuan. There has been countless GU masters before us who envied the 10 extreme physiques, and yet no one, in 3 million years, has even come close to. Xuan Yuan stood up, interrupting Tai Yang. Paradise Earth Immortal Venerable did it. His accumulating virtue GU can create a righteous virtue physique. It possesses a talent only slightly less to the 10 extreme physiques, is without worry of self-combustion, and can be used to attack other GU masters by disturbing their psyche. It is possible, Tai Yang. You only have to be daring enough to grasp it. Tai Yang and Yu Xiaolong both blinked, not knowing that piece of information. Accumulate virtue GU was a human path GU, from Paradise Earth Immortal Venerable's southern border true inheritance. While the nature of the GU was not revealed in the central continent true inheritance, information about the other 4 inheritances could be found within each other inheritance. It was how Lu Wei Yin, the miniman GU immortal from the southern border, knew the details about the other 4 inheritances as well as their rough location. Xuan Yuan could always say that Elder Luo had told him, and his master would back up his words, although it would demand an explanation on how he knew such information. Tai Yang gulped, glancing at Yu Xiaolong who just shrugged his shoulders, mouthing something towards him. Lu Guo said he was monstrously smart. You get used to it. Xuan Yuan noticed Yu Xiaolong mouth something to Tai Yang, but the boy just avoided his eyes, whistling off to the side, glancing at the matches currently going on. Xuan Yuan felt a wisp of a shadow thought flash through his mind, a plan forming in the depths of his sea of consciousness. His mind was split between upholding his morals and obtaining further benefits from the ancient soul sect. Xuan Yuan would have felt bad for manipulating someone still physically and mentally maturing, but suppressed those thoughts, a strange light flashing through his eyes. Single quote ... I want to become the abyssal child, whatever it takes. Extending his hand towards Tai Yang, Xuan Yuan showed an expression of resolve and determination. His deep, dark eyes reflected Tai Yang's form, causing shivers to be sent down the spine of the younger boy. Tai Yang, you are the descendant of an elder in the ancient soul sect. At the very least, you will become a rank 5 GU master. But cultivation can only take you so far. Attainment, comprehension, refinement, even innate talent, all of these are deficiencies that most GU masters lack. Even if you have a heart of righteousness, lacking the sufficient talent, you can only hope to join a lesser sect, finding a method to enhance your innate talent. Wars are fought over transcendence GU and limit-breaking GU. What if we could rid the world of that need, rid the righteous path of that disparity? Imagine, if innate talent was no longer a decisive factor in cultivation. The need for liquor worms, or relic GU, or cloud essence GU would no longer be the defining factor between reaching rank 3, or even rank 4. Tell me Tai Yang, if you could create such a GU, not if it is possible, if you could, would you? Tai Yong glanced around him, unconsciously looking for his sister. The relationship between older sister and younger brother was close, considering the other as the only person in the world that they could trust implicitly. Xuan Yuan didn't know what their relationship was, but knew that all elders were busy people. Not to mention the fact that they would usually keep to themselves, like most of the other elder disciples or descendants. Yin would know what to say. She always knows what to say. Remembering that she was currently unconscious, Tai Yong turned back to Xuan Yuan, realizing that he was the one who knocked his sister unconscious, separating the twins. He just stared at the open hand of Xuan Yuan, staring at him with a confused expression. I don't. Xuan Yuan cut him off, shaking his head. If you're worried about what your sister would say, that's fine. I don't want to create a rift between siblings, twins in particular. If you want to discuss this with Tai Yin, and then come to a decision, that is fine. The offer is open to the both of you. Just remember, Tai Yong. Xuan Yuan smiled, noticing that Tai Yong didn't meet his gaze. I want to do this for the ancient soul sect. No matter the platitudes or the rhetoric or the oratory that I deliver, my sole importance is on the preservation and the legacy I leave in the ancient soul sect. This is my promise to Elder Luo and Elder Hu, both of whom have looked after me ever since I became a disciple. This is to repay everything that they have ever given me, their teachings, their instruction, their guidance, even their love. I hope you tell Tai Yin that as well, Tai Yong. Chapter 41, A Dozen Bouts. Published by Web Novel. Xuan Yuan watched as Tai Yong swiftly removed himself from the conversation. The young man, who had approached Xuan Yuan in order to ask him about the hidden profundities of the fire path hidden within the legends of Renzu, left as quickly as he arrived, his mind overwhelmed by the rapid-fire information that Xuan Yuan had drowned him in. The otherworldly demon just smiled seeing Tai Yong leave. It didn't quite occur to Xuan Yuan until shadows as thought Ji brought the idea to his mind, but having Tai Yong and Tai Yin on his side wasn't a complete waste of time. Both were the descendants of Elder Tai, and their cultivation, Ji and access to resources exceeded that of someone like Yu Xiaolong, someone who did have a Ji master background. Elder Tai wasn't someone who Elder Luo had disagreements with either, and his personality was rather jovial, if slightly lascivious. Xuan Yuan could see that the Tai siblings were friends with Song Pei, and that of the elder descendants that he knew by name, Tai Yong, Tai Yin and Song Pei were the least annoying of the bunch. Feng Kai and Huo Jin were exceptions to this, of course, the latter being a particularly annoying figure in Xuan Yuan's life. If Xuan Yuan could befriend both siblings, or even just Tai Yong, it would give him another thing he could leverage in the future. Cultivating relationships allowed Xuan Yuan a greater degree of freedom within the ancient soul sect. Having multiple elders in his corner would only further benefit himself in the long run. Even if Xuan Yuan had to share some of his knowledge on refining Ji or nurturing Ji, it would be worth it so long as he becomes a rank 5 Ji master. Yu Xiaolong stared at Xuan Yuan, poking him in the ribs, causing him to frown and jump back slightly. Staring at the other boy, Xuan Yuan watched as Yu Xiaolong just sighed, shaking his head from side to side. You're really scary, Xuan Yuan. I don't even understand what you mean by a battlefield killer move, or Dao marks, or the 10 extreme physiques, but I can see why Luo called you different, he said honestly. Xuan Yuan stared at Yu Xiaolong for a moment, before waving him off, patting him on the shoulder. Don't fall in love with me, Xiaolong. It won't end up good for either of us, he smirked. Yu Xiaolong threatened to send a bolt of lightning towards Xuan Yuan, but the latter just tilted his head back and laughed, ignoring the threats of dismemberment and decapitation. Yu Xiaolong was surprisingly easy to get along with, and his cultivation and innate talent didn't make it feel weird when he compared himself to his friend. Xuan Yuan was worried that others his age would be envious or jealous of his comprehension, which is why he tried to choose his friends closely. Yu Zhong'er and Long Shi were among them, although his relationship with them had turned less student and teacher, and more friends with common enemies. So long as Huo Jin continued to annoy the three of them, they would inevitably push them closer, uniting them under a common thread. Yu Zhong'er also promised to take Xuan Yuan out on missions, and agreed that after the tournament she would take him out. He was already a rank 2 middle stage Ji master, but he became sidetracked by researching Nine Eyes Shadow Ji and the space path lessons he took from Elder Luo. Xuan Yuan wasn't someone who removed all human concepts of the self, obsession and emptiness from his mind. He couldn't just suddenly disassociate his entire moral framework and understanding of human existence in just a few years. He had read how Fang Yuan removed all obsession, all sense of self, and saw the world completely equal. That much he could understand. All life was equal, no matter if it was a single immature sapling, or a near omnipotent rank 9 Ji immortal. By removing all emotions, all sense of self, all things that were subject to change, Fang Yuan could focus solely on his goal to reach immortality. But the power of relationships of other people were not completely worthless, as seen by him currying favor with Shangxi, even if the relationship was mostly one-sided in the end. Xuan Yuan would learn as much as he could about Fang Yuan, both his philosophy and his knowledge. But he wouldn't stop there. Star Constellation, Giant Sun, Duke Long, Red Lotus, Thieving Heaven, and even Spectral Soul, all of these people Xuan Yuan knew he could learn from. It was then that Xuan Yuan heard his name being called out. Platform 1, Xuan Yuan versus Bing Ti. Standing up, Xuan Yuan heard Yu Xiaolong wish him good luck, causing him to smile, waving him off. Walking towards the platform, Xuan Yuan could see Bing Ti walk up to the other side, his expression jittery, eyeing Xuan Yuan warily. Knowledge on Xuan Yuan's shadow path had exploded after his fight with Tai Yin, and most of his Ji had been revealed, allowing others to try and figure out a method to counter it. Their knowledge on the shadow path was severely lacking, forcing them to test out their theories in the matches, risking themselves in the process. Bing Ti and Xuan Yuan just stared at each other, each acknowledging the referee before sparking into action the moment the fight was formally announced. Begin. Xuan Yuan knew that Bing Ti didn't have much primeval essence left within his aperture. The boy was still only a peak rank 1 Ji master, and knew that Xuan Yuan was a middle stage rank 2 Ji master. Having access to a higher quality of primeval essence in Ji, Bing Ti did the thing that any Ji master would do when faced with a stronger opponent. He ran. Xuan Yuan raised an eyebrow, noticing Bing Ti run to the other side of the platform, putting as much distance between them as possible. He didn't even try to attack Xuan Yuan as he ran away, prompting him to follow him, striding towards him, the shadow of an enormous scorpion stinger emerging from his back, and a sword falling into his hands. Bing Ti noticed the 5-meter-long scorpion stinger was raised high, poised to strike at him, but continued to run, trying to circle around Xuan Yuan. He didn't quite make it that far, and quickly shouted to the referee, informing them of his surrender. "Ah, screw this, just let me regenerate some primeval essence for my next fight. I surrender." Glaring at Xuan Yuan as he walked off the stage, the otherworldly demon just deactivated his Ji, exiting from his end of the platform. The previous fights ended quicker than this one, but he couldn't blame Bing Ti for trying, and just walked back towards his seat. More than a dozen rounds continued like this, and after more than half a day sitting and fighting and meditating with the Strength Soul Hall, there were only a handful of disciples left. The sun had long since started to fall towards the horizon, and the shadow of False Soul Mountain cast the valleys and rivers surrounding Earth Soul City into darkness. Xuan Yuan, Song Pei, Fang Kai and Tai Yong were all forced to be more heavy-handed in order to force their opponents to exit the tournament. All of them were running low on primeval essence, even with their rank 2 Ji master cultivation. They had all fought more than a dozen fights, some even against each other. Xuan Yuan had fought Song Pei and Fang Kai, and won against the former quite easily, while the latter used the nature of his poison path Ji to force Xuan Yuan to fight at distance, removing the advantage he had with Shadow Stinger Ji and Silhouette Strings Ji. Song Pei brought out his Raging Waves crocodile, a beast which had been given to him by his grandfather, Elder Song. It possessed the strength of a rank 2 Ji master, and a strange movement which allowed it to slide on the platform, as if it were covered in oil or slime. Xuan Yuan was forced to use his Silhouette Strings Ji in order to defend himself, but Song Pei used another rank 2 Ji which removed all sense of pain from his Raging Waves crocodile. It forced Xuan Yuan to expend a large amount of primeval essence in order to repeatedly use Dense Shadow Blade Ji and Bright Red Light Ji to defeat it. Fang Kai, on the other hand, possessed a nasty rank 2 Ji. Rank 2 Corrosive Shadow GU was a shadow path GU which seemed to mimic the effects of the poison path. It could corrode shadows that came into contact with it, and worked extremely well against 21's Shadow Stinger GU and Silhouette Strings GU. It essentially ignored his defenses, allowing Fang Kai to bridge the gap between them, allowing him to use his martial arts without having to worry about extra appendages or invisible string blades. Xuan Yuan burned through a significant amount of primeval essence in order to beat Fang Kai using his dense Shadow Blade GU. Tai Yong ended up defeating both Jia Yufei and Li Xiao'er, using his rank 2 Burning Lantern GU to defend against Jia Yufei's Firefox GU, and to counter Li Xiao'er's speed. Burning Lantern GU continuously drained his primeval essence, providing an almost universal defense against objects that came too close to the GU master's body. Xuan Yuan believed that it had the greatest primeval essence cost of any GU used in the tournament, but its strength wasn't anything to scoff at. Even Yu Xiaolong, who also fought against Li Xiao'er, could do nothing against her speed. While his linear speed exceeding Li Xiao'er, her rank 2 Chasing Wind GU, combined with her rank 1 Air Eyes GU allowed her to perceive, and subsequently react to things better than her opponent. He was defeated quite quickly after that. Against other Tai Yong and Feng Kai opted to use their martial arts in order to swiftly deal with their opponents, but found that they tried to use their GU when they least expected it in order to deal a decisive blow, hoping it would force them out of the tournament. By this stage, there were no more members of the Light Soul Hall in the arena. No GU master could receive healing, only enduring the blows and punches of their opponent, carrying their wounds into their next fight. Xuan Yuan himself had been touched by Feng Kai's Corrosive Shadow GU, making the others believe that his left arm had been quite severely injured. However, a rank 2 GU won't have much effect on a rank 5 GU. Even if Shadows' thought GU doesn't have the same suppressive force that an immortal GU has, it should still resist a significantly weaker GU. My arm tingles a little bit, but is still usable in the long run. He had been saved by Little Shadow. Looking into the crowd, he could see Elder Luo give him a glance, but otherwise remain as impassive and unbiased as always. Elder Hu showed a similar expression, but Elder Gong nodded at him, while Elder Kong just chatted with the sect master. The 3 GU immortals in the crowd also remained, completely unnoticed by the others around them, the dark-haired GU immortal winking at Xuan Yuan, directly gesturing to Xuan Yuan's shadow, causing him to freeze up. Single quote ... She knows about Little Shadow, he thought. The immortal, that Xuan Yuan now reasoned was Immortal Song, didn't seem to say anything to Immortal D, or the other immortal sitting beside them, instead using some unknown GU to message something to Xuan Yuan, unbeknownst to the others in the arena. Don't worry Little Yuan, I won't tell anyone about the little GU hidden in your shadow. If it was an offensive GU, maybe I'd have something to worry about, but a shadows as though GU, while rare, is not something considered valuable to GU immortals. Tell me later how you got it, and if anyone asks, tell them I gave it to you. Xuan Yuan didn't return the message with a nod or smile, instead continuing his conversation with Yu Xiaolong, patting his back after his most recent defeat. It wasn't long after that Xuan Yuan was called up again to the platform. Platform 2, Jia Yufei versus Xuan Yuan. Chapter 42 Friendly Discussion. Published by Web Novel. Stepping up to the stage, Xuan Yuan watched as his opponent winked at him, waving at him shyly. Jia Yufei was extraordinarily pretty, a level similar to Tai Yin, Long Shi and Yu Zhong'er. Xuan Yuan wasn't sure if it was natural or through the influence of some sort of GU, but Jia Yufei possessed deep, almost crimson-colored hair. Her features were well developed, making her seem older than what her actual age suggested. If Xuan Yuan was just a normal 16-year-old boy, he might have been smitten by her appearance, a tactic which worked on Feng Kai, causing him to lose his fight against her. Jia Yufei was a fire path GU master, one with a combat style similar to his own. She didn't excel at martial arts or close quarters combat, instead opting to fight at range, with defenses created and managed by her GU. Excluding her rank 2 Firefox GU, Jia Yufei also possessed numerous rank 1 GU. From what Xuan Yuan could see from her previous fights, she had a rank 1 Fire Whip GU, rank 1 Dull Embers GU, rank 1 Flame Gathering GU, rank 1 Fire Snake GU, and a rank 1 Self-Immolation GU. Using the combination of Self-Immolation GU to produce an effect similar to Fire Cloak GU, Jia Yufei could cover her body in searing flames capable of producing a far stronger effect than Fire Cloak GU, for a smaller primeval essence cost. Self-Immolation GU damaged the GU master that used it, but produced extremely high temperature flames. Using Self-Immolation GU in tandem with Flame Gathering GU and Dull Embers GU, allowing Jia Yufei to condense the flames created by Self-Immolation GU in a single point, before releasing it outward with Blue Embers GU. Dull Embers GU almost did the opposite of Flame Gathering GU and scattered nearby flames. It was actually a GU more commonly used to repel Fire Path GU, but Jia Yufei used it to send her flames outwards over a large area back towards her opponent. She turned the weakness of Self-Immolation GU into a potent strength using a combination of different GU. Just from this alone, it seemed as though her grasp on the Fire Path was young, but rooted within her mind. Xuan Yuan watched as she placed a hand on her hip and sighed, showing signs of exasperation. You'll talk to Tai Yin but not me, is that right? Just because she is bigger up here, men go crazy for her. It doesn't seem like you're any better, Little Yuan. Xuan Yuan suppressed a chuckle, shrugging his shoulders. You are strong, Jia Yufei. Do not resort to tactics designed to waste time or stall. I don't want to give the others a chance to regain any primeval essence. Let us fight, Jia Yufei, and see which one of us is stronger. Xuan Yuan's gaze was clear, unblemished by impure desire or malicious thoughts. His opponent just smiled, nodding, pleased with his response. Rumors and gossip about Xuan Yuan which had circulated previously had quickly been dismissed after Elder Chong and the sect leader intervened. Xuan Yuan was young, tall, handsome, and a strange mixture of aloof and charismatic. He seemed to attract other like-minded individuals, like Lu Guo, a member of the Burning Soul Hall in Yu Xiaolong, whose mother and father were rank 3 GU masters living in Earth Soul City. Jia Yufei had also done some digging herself, and knew of his student-teacher relationship with Long Shi and Yu Zhong'er, both of whom were here today, and both of which were equal in beauty to herself. Nodding, she readied herself, raising her arms in a defensive posture, focusing solely on Xuan Yuan. Her opponent did the same, nodding at the referee, who just raised their arm, swinging it down. Begin. Jia Yufei didn't hold anything back, and immediately unleashed her rank 2 Firefox GU, sending bright blue-colored balls of fire towards Xuan Yuan. The girl simultaneously retreated backwards on the platform, not bothering to reserve her primeval essence. Xuan Yuan let out a small tisk, before sprinting towards her, activating both his Thick Space GU and Dense Shadow Blade GU. Using 2 rank 2 GU at the same time drained his primeval essence dramatically, but the combination of the 2 GU prevented the Firefox GU from getting too close to him, allowing Xuan Yuan to destroy them before they got too close. Xuan Yuan didn't consider using his sword, knowing that a mortal blade wouldn't stand up to the heat and destructive power of a rank 2 Firepath GU. He understood that he had numerous deficiencies in terms of the GU within his repertoire, but with how quick Xuan Yuan cultivated, he would probably reach rank 3 before he finished an entire set of rank 2 GU. Even if his attainment exceeded that of all his peers, he was still limited by primeval essence stones. It was partially why the title of Abyssal Child was so enticing to Xuan Yuan. Jia Yufei narrowed her eyes, and Xuan Yuan could see flames suddenly expand outward from every corner of her body. Within the time it took to take a single breath, Jia Yufei was encased in a suit of searing flame. And yet, in the next moment, all the flames condensed into a single point before exploding outwards, covering almost half the entire platform, bathing it in a sea of falling flames. Xuan Yuan continued using Thick Space GU in tandem with Push GU. The combination of Space Path GU allowed Xuan Yuan to push away the flames that threatened to touch his upper body, continuing his sprint towards his opponent. Jia Yufei lifted her head, her deep crimson hair singed at the tips, and suppressed a grimace, seeing Xuan Yuan within 10 meters of her, scorpion stinger emerging from the base of his spine. The girl sighed before raising her hands, forcing the referee to step in. I surrender, the girl said, watching as the referee immediately appeared beside her, causing Xuan Yuan to stop his advance. The young man just halted his sprint, skidding slightly, before glancing at Jia Yufei, giving her a small smile. The girl just shrugged her shoulders, tilting her head back to look up at Xuan Yuan. You managed to block everything I sent at you without so much as hesitating. Have you planned for the others like you have planned for me? She asked. Xuan Yuan didn't hide it, nodding. Fang Kai is the most annoying. His rank 2 GU directly counters most of my GU. Song Pei is too limited in this fight. The terrain isn't too advantageous for his crocodile beast. Tai Yong is a turtle shell, so just forcing him to use his GU makes him weaker the longer the tournament goes on. Li Xiaoer, well, she is fast, but she is limited by her own perception. A rank 1 perception type GU cannot keep up with a rank 2 movement type GU. Jia Yufei raised an eyebrow, smiling as they walked off the platform together. Is that how you countered Tai Yin's slash? I didn't know a rank 2 GU could be that strong, to be honest. She must have been using numerous rank 2 supportive type GU in tandem with her crescent slash GU. Xuan Yuan didn't reply, causing Jia Yufei to huff slightly, even as she sat down beside him. Yu Xiaolong and Lu Guo watched the pair from a couple rows above them, the former poking the latter as they watched the two chat unbothered by the stares and glares of the others around them. Lu Guo just blinked, while Yu Xiaolong enviously gripped his friend's arm. When we all go on missions together, we'll get Xuan Yuan to bring some girls, right Guo? His friend just nodded, almost not catching his name being called by Elder Chong. The younger boy stood up, discarding any thoughts of how Xuan Yuan easily chatted with Jia Yufei, thinking about chatting with the object of his own crush. Jia Yufei asked all sorts of questions about GU and GU materials and beasts and different paths to Xuan Yuan. While her knowledge on the fire path exceeded his own by a wide margin, her grasp on other paths lagged behind, even just the names and abilities of common GU from other paths. Her mother was a rank 2 GU master, but her father was just a mortal. That was about as much as Xuan Yuan was willing to ask about her background before the expression on her face turned dark, forcing her to change the conversation. Quote. So what do you like about the shadow path? I'm sure plenty have asked you that question before. Xuan Yuan chuckled, nodding his head from side to side. No, actually, most ask why I walk the shadow path instead of the space path or the dark path, or even the light path. The reason why is actually quite simple, really. I personally think it is stronger than either the light path or the dark path. At least, in terms of its own specialty. How so? She questioned. Xuan Yuan hummed for a second, glancing at her before shooting the question right back at her. I'll tell you if you tell me why you walk the fire path. The fire path is, well, overwhelmingly effective in terms of widespread destruction, making it a great offensive path, but the fire path is, well, from my understanding, so much more than just destruction. Jia Yufei nodded, understanding Xuan Yuan's meaning. The girl showed a wistful expression, kicking her legs out somewhat before replying to Xuan Yuan. My mother was born in the Western Desert, and when she was a little girl, she saw with her own 2 eyes the eclipsing light flameless lake, a place recorded within the legends of Renzu. The Western Desert holds no ocean or sea, but without a word of a lie, she said that the eclipsing light flameless lake stretched beyond the horizon. It was an endless sea of burning crimson fire. One might think it was lava or magma from how hot it was, but dipping a hand into the lake, one could pluck a fish from it like it was nothing. Trees and flowers bloomed along the coast. Sandy beaches and bright blue skies could be seen everywhere, and all manner of birds, insects, fish and beasts lived within and around the lake, making it seem like a paradise in the endless dunes. She told me that in fire, all things existed in harmony. Fire birthed, fire nurtured, fire propagated, fire flourished. Even if fire did return all things to ash and dust, life would still return, nurtured by flame and warmth. She looked up at Xuan Yuan, smiling. Do you feel the same way, Xuan Yuan? The young man paused, feeling a tug at his heartstrings. There was a similarity between them that he couldn't ignore, but suppressed those feelings, just nodding at her words. I can't say that I dream of fire, but the shadows speak to me in a way that other paths do not. My comprehension on the dark path and light path in support of the shadow path lead me to believe that there are more to shadows than just hollow reflections that follow us around. Shadows are born with us, grow with us, love with us, hate with us and eventually, die with us. They experience everything we do, even if we don't think that they do. Your shadow knows everything about you, Jia Yufei. It loves the things you like and hates the things you dislike. They are a perfect reflection, better than any mirror or GU could ever be. Jia Yufei nodded at Xuan Yuan, asking him a few more questions about GU and the shadow path, and in turn, answering several more questions on the fire path and her understanding of the eclipsing light flameless lake. A few others watched their interaction, trying to get closer and hear what they were saying, but after hearing them talk about the fire path and the shadow path, their interest waned. It wouldn't stop gossip and rumors from forming tomorrow, but for today, most were too tired, or too focused to think about a beautiful young girl, and a handsome young man chat with each other on their knowledge of GU. Tai Yong, however, listened to their conversation intently, his eyebrows raising as the pair discussed the fire path. A small seed was planted in his heart. Reverend Insanity, White Shadow Demonic Venerable. Published by Web Novel. Chapter 43 Master. Xuan Yuan knew he had underestimated the competency of regular GU masters. The 10 great sects were the pinnacle of the GU world in the central continent, and numerous geniuses and GU masters with all sorts of experiences and talents lived and cultivated there. Xuan Yuan knew that in his circle of friends and acquaintances, perhaps Yu Zhang'er was the most talented in terms of comprehension, while someone like Long Shi was the most talented in terms of innate talent, with a 94% primeval essence C. The pair were shrewd, but walked the righteous path, which is why Xuan Yuan didn't have to worry about being betrayed or backstabbed. His cultivation would soar and his attainment would develop quicker than their own, so making an enemy of him would be worse than making an enemy out of someone like Huo Jin. Most righteous path GU masters did have their own self-interests placed before the self-interests of others, but that was primarily within clans where nepotism and biased evaluations took place on a daily basis. The 10 great sects brought in the most talented young men and women from all over the central continent and nurtured them all equally, at least for the most part. The future of the ancient soul sect and the other 10 great sects were also taken into account, and positions such as junior elders and holy sons and holy daughters were used to show favoritism in a democratic and unbiased way. Xuan Yuan could understand how the righteous path groomed and brainwashed one generation to the next under the guise of fairness and equality. He didn't voice his thoughts, but knew deep down that if he was born with a barely B-grade talent, Xuan Yuan would never have met Elder Luo, and more likely than not, never increased his attainment at the speed he did. Which is why he was suddenly interested in other GU masters with a similar talent to his own. Yu Zhang'er and Long Shi were talented in their own right, but both were mortal-born GU masters without any sort of backing in the ancient soul sect, or in the mortal world. If they had access to what Tai Yin or Song Pei, or even Yu Xiaolong's resources, they would have progressed significantly farther in their cultivation and their attainment. Jia Yufei, the daughter of a rank 2 GU master, had such a background, even if it was somewhat lacking. Through her experiences, her grasp and perspective on the fire path was significantly different to someone like Tai Yang, or any other GU master their age. It allowed Xuan Yuan to understand, even the basics of another path, things that he never would have thought of normally without help. Xuan Yuan didn't understand the space path, or the refinement path until Elder Luo and Elder Gong taught him. The refinement path was significantly more difficult, considering it didn't have any GU one could use, but was still essential in comprehending the essence of what a GU was, how it worked, why it worked and how it affected all other things in creation. His discussion with Jia Yufei was enlightening, and it only strengthened his resolve to create more ties in the ancient soul sect. Tai Yin and Tai Yang are the children of Elder Tai, the leader of the Water Soul Hall. He manages all of the spirit springs the sect is currently in control of, and is in charge of an immense amount of wealth. Jia Yufei and Yu Xiaolong are both second-generation GU masters, both talented in their own right. Lu Guo is a member of the Burning Soul Hall, and can tell me some of the investigations currently going on in the sect. Yu Zhang'er and Long Shi both promised to take me out on missions after the tournament. They also promised to give me their rank 2-4 fragrances liquor worm when both of them reach the peak rank 2 GU master stage. Not to mention, both of them have experiences and knowledge they would be willing to trade, and so long as Huojin is a mutual, well, enemy of ours, our relationship won't break apart in the short term. Slightly more than half a dozen people in the span of a year. Xuanyuan probably could have done significantly better if he focused on cultivating friendships instead of his own cultivation, but in the long run, most of his fellow disciples would never become a rank 5 GU master. Realistically, it would be better to focus on other people than waste time with them. Not to mention, focusing on too many people would slow down his own time for cultivating, affecting his long-term progress. Lifting his head, Xuanyuan could see that the current round of bouts had been completed. The sun had long since set over the horizon, and the stands, where more than 100 new disciples once sat, now cradled barely half a dozen. In contrast, however, the audience stands were filled almost to the brim with GU masters of all age and background sitting down, yelling, screaming and betting, trying to bolster the confidence of their seated GU master, and trying to chip away at any the others had left. Tai Yong, you better win this, you hear me? I've got 30 primeval essence stones on you. Screw that guy Feng Kai. If you win the tournament, I'll win almost 100 primeval essence stones. Feng Chen, keep it together, man. You're almost at the finish line. Show these elder descendants the power of this mortal-born GU masters. I don't know who you are, Xuanyuan, but you're the most handsome guy here, so you better win. A 99% primeval essence C. You must have loads of primeval essence left. Xuanyuan could feel his heat beating in his chest, his normally clean robes covered in sweat and dirt and blood. He had lost count of how many fights he had done so far, but believed it closer to 30, perhaps even exceeding the number. Xuanyuan refrained from using any rank 2 GU in a fight, and so did Feng Kai and Tai Yong. They all fought with rank 1 GU or martial arts, putting Xuanyuan at a slight disadvantage with his inexperience. As a result, the left side of his abdomen hummed with pain, causing him to glance at Feng Chen, internally admiring his level of perseverance. Feng Chen was the rank 1 GU master with the strange wisdom path GU which allowed him to predict his opponent's attacks. It absolutely drained his primeval essence, forcing him to rely on martial arts, but Xuanyuan suspected that his physique had somehow been strengthened to match that of a rank 2 GU master. His endurance and his willpower were almost inhumane. His upper body continued to bleed, despite the referees recommending him to surrender, but the young man, pale-faced and stalwart, continued to fight again and again and again. Xuanyuan, having the largest primeval essence C present, had roughly 10% of his scarlet red primeval essence left. He had estimated that Feng Kai and Tai Yong, even if they had 90% primeval essence Cs, were roughly the same level as his own. He didn't know if any of them had Cloud Essence GU, or a Beggar Moth GU, and if they did, Xuanyuan could only curse his luck, and force himself to push his endurance, drawing out the fight as long as possible. He had tried to knock Feng Chen out in the same method he did to Tai Yin, but the young man swiftly punched him in the abdomen, causing Xuanyuan to cut him with his mortal blade, forcing him to surrender. Feng Chen was still bleeding even as his next fight went on. Even if he had Perseverance GU, he would die of blood loss before the tournament was over. Even if the young man had the mental strength and the willpower to continue, his mortal frame would be extinguished before he could finish. Even Xuanyuan felt his willpower waning, as he endured blow after blow from his opponents. None of his opponents possessed storage-type GU, so Xuanyuan had the advantage of eating food and drinking as much water as he could in between bouts. He had been forced to use some of the mortal blades he kept within his shadow to defeat Feng Kai and Tai Yong, but still lost to the former due to his corrosive shadow GU. Come on, Xuanyuan, I've got my entire savings on you winning this thing. Kick their ass and make me some money. You've got this, Xuanyuan. Push through and you've got this in the bag. You beat me, didn't you? Don't lose to some rich second-generation young master. You're better than this. Peering out into the crowd, Xuanyuan could see Yu Xiaolong, Lu Guo, Jia Yufei sitting in the row in front of Yu Zhang'er and Long Shi. All five of them waved at him, trying their best to let their voices be heard over the screams of the other disciples. Seeing their red faces from shouting, Xuanyuan couldn't help but let out a chuckle, causing a flash of pain to course throughout his abdomen. His expression grew strained, as the pain in his stomach, and the physical strain of his muscles and bones creaked with every sharp movement he made. For the first time since coming to the ancient soul sect, Xuanyuan's heart was racing in a way that he never once considered since coming to the GU world. This world was horrifying in terms of its rules and regulations. GU, beasts and even human lives were all currency for GU immortals who ruled over anyone below rank 6 with iron fist hidden within a silk glove. Xuanyuan knew from his previous life that humans were simultaneously the most loving and the most dangerous life form in this world. They systematically annihilated both beastmen and the dragonmen, and threatened to enslave and massacre other variant humans just because they were slightly different to humans. It had been more than 3 million years since humans rose to power, and even the oldest human currently alive today wasn't alive to be enslaved by variant humans. This was a world which bathed in the blood of hundreds of trillions of life forms. All things under the heavens could be refined into GU. Even heaven itself could be refined into fate GU. Xuanyuan even came to the conclusion that humans could be considered incomplete GU recipes. They lacked the innate Dao marks of the 10 extreme physiques, while variant humans, even mortal ones, were born with Dao marks relating to a certain path. It was possible to create both variant humans and extreme physiques, so why couldn't he? Xuanyuan thought. There was something on the tip of Xuanyuan's tongue, something that he couldn't quite word, but instinctively knew was true despite every fiber of his being preventing him from doing so. Everything that Xuanyuan knew about the GU world made him think he was getting close and closer to a master-level attainment in the shadow path. Heaven's will, and subsequently fate GU had less of an affect on Xuanyuan, but could still influence him due to his body belonging to the GU world. There was something, so close that Xuanyuan could almost taste it. Even as he was walking up to the stage, facing off against Feng Kai for the third time, Xuanyuan could feel the restraints keeping him back loosen, as if suddenly, this was the right time. Xuanyuan focused his gaze on Feng Kai's shadow, his vision blurred for a moment, his own 9 eyes shadow GU overlapping with his vision, granting him sight of every single shadow around him. Xuanyuan felt his breath hitch, not responding to the referee's call, instead gazing out at the innumerable shadows all around him. Even though Xuanyuan had spent a year in the ancient soul sect, he had never seen the shadows of so many GU masters in a single place before, countless reflections dancing in the light of candle GU, covering the walls, floors and ceilings with myriad shadows. Every single one moved and danced in their own way, reflecting the qualities and characteristics of their reflections. Living beings gave life to shadows, imbuing them with concepts and memories, likes and dislikes, even secrets and desires. He could see the minute differences in shadows, their depth, their length, their movements, the way their reflections could breathe, and even shades of color within them. These colors were like tiny islands swimming in an endless sea of yin and yang. White tones and black shades cut a clear divide in the world around Xuanyuan, yet fragments of red, yellow and blue, faint remnants of purple, green and orange, flickered like candles amidst a monotonous ocean of light and darkness. In Xuanyuan's eyes, the world came to a sharp and sudden halt, not even noticing the referee announce the beginning of the fight. His gaze remained fixated on the world around him, gazing at endless reflections, and the living being which birthed them. In this monochrome world of black and white, some GU masters possessed color to their shadow. Xuanyuan felt his pupils shrink to pins as he unconsciously avoided the strike of Feng Kai, his movement suddenly becoming smoother, more refined as his shadow waltzed under the watchful eyes of countless other shadows. His gaze lingered on the shadow closest to him, seeing a faint touch of poisonous purple added to its essence. The Feng Kai-shaped shadow remained in the forefront of Xuanyuan's mind, and he matched the cadence and movements of said shadow, avoiding sharp strikes and vicious blows with gentle ease and minimal movements. Every single one of Xuanyuan's thoughts were focused on comprehending the shadows around him. Their formation, their differences, their similarities, their strengths, their weaknesses, their concepts, even their actions and feelings. Shadows were the reflections of all living beings, so should they not be able to express the same feelings and experience the same memories? Xuan Yuan's eyes suddenly regained their focus, his expression becoming clearer, as he whispered a faint few words under his breath. Winter's breath and summer's days. Autumn folly and spring's haze. I alone dance beneath the sun and moon, recalling the distant memories of one forgetful afternoon. The joy in my soul, the sadness in my mind. Why is it that humans are so unkind? The faint whimper of the heart only reminds me that I will never be apart. My sweet reflection, my gentle repose. All things in the universe as shadows. Immortal Song stood up in the crowd, her eyes wide with shock and awe. Immortal Chu also saw the change in Xuan Yuan's demeanor, as did Elder Kong, Elder Luo and the sect master in the stands. Each showed expressions of astonishment, admiration, and even pride. Fang Kai couldn't even touch the hem of Xuan Yuan's clothing, let alone his shadow. His corrosive shadow Ji Yu doing nothing but drain his primeval essence as Xuan Yuan matched the rhythm of his shadow. This young man, barely 16 years of age, had become a master in the shadow path. Chapter 44 Unraveling Shadows. Published by Web Novel. Under the gazes of thousands of disciples, most of the elders, and 3 GU immortals of the ancient soul sect, Xuan Yuan pushed his attainment of the shadow path past the quasi-master level, becoming a master in the shadow path. While it wasn't obvious to most, those GU immortals, and those GU masters at the peak of rank 5, who had become much more perceptible to the changes of heaven chi, earth chi and human chi, could sense Xuan Yuan's human chi increase more than double its previous amount. Human chi was a mysterious form of chi. It related to the formation of a blessed land at rank 6, but also was a measure of an individual's attainment, physique, knowledge, comprehension, mental energy, soul strength, and even experiences throughout their entire lifetime. When experiencing immense mental strain, emotional growth or some sort of extreme change in personality, human chi would increase as a result, but only by a minute amount. Increasing attainment, comprehension, mental energy, soul strength and even the strength of a GU master's physique would increase human chi more effectively, leading to greater returns at rank 6. It would take a regular GU master to become a GU immortal to reach a master attainment in their main path. Immortal Ascension baptized a GU master, allowing them to perceive Dao marks to a certain extent, and would be much easier to increase attainment when an individual could sense a fundamental concept of cultivation. Xuan Yuan couldn't sense Dao marks, but knew they existed in all things, even himself, despite being human. He possessed otherworldly Dao marks, carved into his soul which belonged to another world. He suspected that these Dao marks were part of the reason why Fate GU couldn't fully control him. They were not native to this world, meaning that he could not be influenced by them, at least to a certain degree. It was extremely rare for a GU master to become a master in a path while they were still a GU master, although geniuses, experienced old GU masters and those with one of the 10 extreme physiques could obtain such a thing with sufficient resources and time. It was unnatural for a GU master to possess the Dao marks of GU immortal, but it didn't stop Limitless from doing it, causing assumption after assumption to appear within the minds of many. Elder Kong muttered something under his breath, his eyes firmly locked on Xuan Yuan's dancing shadow. Comprehending heaven and earth, all things in the universe are shadows. He whispered this, but all the other elders in the room still heard him. Elder Tai, Elder Song, and Elder Feng didn't understand the importance of Elder Kong's words, but understood what it meant for Xuan Yuan to become a master in the shadow path. It meant that their own children had no chance of becoming an abyssal child. The young man in front of them was a literal freak of nature. Someone blessed by the heavens with a freakishly high innate talent and comprehension. As members of the 10 great sects, they had all heard stories of Limitless and the other immortal venerables throughout history. Limitless had obtained the powers of a GU immortal as a GU master. He could acquire Dao marks like a GU immortal despite being only rank 4 and rank 5, so while it was unnatural, seeing Xuan Yuan become a master in the shadow path, he unconsciously equated Xuan Yuan on the same level as a venerable level talent. Someone like Feng Zhuzhe from the Spirit Affinity House, capable of fighting rank 8 GU immortals as a rank 7 GU immortal. Even if Xuan Yuan was not as gifted in terms of combat prowess, his comprehension was freakishly monstrous for someone of his age. While it wasn't unheard of for talented disciples to become a master in their path before immortal ascension, it usually took them the better part of a decade to attain this level of understanding. Elder Kong was the first to realize this and sent a message to several GU immortals in the sect, informing them of the event. Xuan Yuan was his seed for this generation's abyssal child, but was also backed by Immortal Song, Immortal Chu, Immortal Bi, Immortal Li, and to some degree, Immortal Lan. There were other candidates, the strongest being Kong Ju from Light Soul Hall. He was favored by Immortal Gong, in addition to Immortal Wu. The former was a refinement path GU immortal, while the latter a wisdom path GU immortal. The others were only favored by a single GU immortal, and all underwent the same evaluation as Xuan Yuan. Without a doubt, Xuan Yuan had the strongest claim to become abyssal child, even to the point where the other GU immortals of the ancient soul sect wondered why so many of their fellow immortals believed in this young man. Particularly Immortal Chu, but that was something else entirely. But this was undeniable. Xuan Yuan was a master in the shadow path at only 16. Kong Ju was a master in the light path, and he was 25 this year. The difference was akin to the distance between the earth and the sky. Xuan Yuan would become the abyssal child and have first claim over the limitless inheritance. Even if he didn't obtain it, his attainment in the rule path would skyrocket, reaching at least a master level. Elder Kong continued to message the other GU immortals in the sect, while Elder Luo, Elder Hu and Elder Gong next to them just watched as Xuan Yuan flicked his fingers, trapping Fang Kai in a dense net of shadow strings. Elder Luo's disciple didn't hold back either, strings instantly severing his carotid, radial and femoral arteries. Fang Kai instantly fell to his knees, his clothes and the platform beneath him quickly being dyed red under the immense amounts of blood leaking out from his wounds. The referee called the match, and Elder Fang flicked from his position on the platform, letting a green light envelop his grandson, glancing at Xuan Yuan for a moment before giving him a small nod. It is a shame that my grandson was born during this era. With those words, Elder Fang carried Fang Kai off the platform, towards the Light Soul Hall, forcing him to drop out of the tournament. Xuan Yuan was left standing on the platform alone, his pupils returning to their previous size, as a wave of exhaustion washed over him. For a second, he had become lost in that world of shadows, dancing, flickering, each telling a story about their reflection. He thought he could almost hear them, but there was no rational explanation for it, and Xuan Yuan was only left with a slight tingle on the back of his neck. It wasn't unpleasant, and in fact, made him much more aware of the shadows around him. Xuan Yuan didn't even have time to blink before the entire crowd burst into cheers, some screaming, others cursing his name. Nice, you've been holding out on us. If you keep this up, you'll win the tournament. It was like bam, then kapow, then smash, then bang and then you won. Holy shit, you absolutely destroyed him. What the hell were those movements? Wait, I just lost 40 primeval essence stones. Haha, I just won 30 primeval essence stones. This kid is my lucky star. Whose disciple did you say he was again? Xuan Yuan just walked off the stage towards the participant stands, both Tai Yong and Feng Chen giving Xuan Yuan a wide berth, seeing his movements and reflexes suddenly improving. The pair thought that he had suddenly undergone enlightenment or something, and neither suspected that Xuan Yuan had reached a level where the execution and management of his shadow path GU could be considered an art. He only needed 9 eyes shadow GU and silhouette strings GU in order to beat Feng Kai, and that was with the latter using his corrosive shadow GU. Tai Yong and Feng Chen just shook their heads, standing up and ignoring their injuries as they both walked up to the platform. Xuan Yuan was the least of their problems in this moment, neither one wanting to waste time fighting the other, hoping that their bout wouldn't be dragged out continuously draining their endurance. Xuan Yuan too ignored them for a moment, and just closed his eyes focusing on himself, entering a meditative state. He knew that he had just become a master in the shadow path, and that slight tingle on the back of his neck was more than just a feeling. Thinking back to the first ever GU recipe he thought of, Xuan Yuan instinctively knew that using the Shadow Eyes GU, Charcoal GU, Shadowless Sword GU and Ebony Stallion Bones would produce an explosion, resulting in the destruction of all the materials involved in the refinement. Somehow, Xuan Yuan just knew that if he added Black Sand, Whispering Night Coke, Black Green Bronze, Air Purifying GU, Shadow Breath GU and Rainblade GU, Xuan Yuan could complete the GU recipe. The GU recipe had suddenly become much more complex, adding in numerous other steps, GU and GU materials in order to complete the recipe. All of the GU and GU materials were used to refine Shadowless Sword GU, including Rainblade GU, a Blade Path GU which could quench the Shadowless Sword GU during the refinement process. Theoretically, it could give birth to a new GU which possessed the likeness of Rainblade GU and Shadowless Sword GU. Rainblade GU was actually a supportive type GU which enhanced other ranged Blade Path GU channeled through it, while Shadowless Sword GU lacked a shadow but could still touch and harm other shadows like a regular mortal blade. Xuan Yuan didn't stop there either, thinking about the other incomplete GU recipes in his mind. He had seen a couple other incomplete GU recipes while discussing refinement with Elder Kui. Most were only incomplete rank 1 Shadow Path GU recipes, but the vast majority had huge sections destroyed, the spoils of war from demonic path GU masters or sects or clans that have tried to wage war against the ancient soul sect. There was even one who only had a name left behind. The entirety of the GU recipe was destroyed, lost, possibly for the rest of time. Rank 1 Fake Shadow GU. Rank 1 Dancing Shadow GU. Rank 1 Lion Shadow GU. Rank 1 Umbral Spike GU. Rank 1 Black Shroud GU. Rank 1 Shadow Spear GU. Rank 1 Splitting Shadow GU. Rank 1 Forging Shadow GU. Even 2 incomplete Rank 2 GU recipes. Rank 2 Wandering Shadow GU. Rank 2 Twin Shadow GU. The last one in particular caught Xuan Yuan's eye. Twin Shadow GU. Does it split the shadow into two, or does it somehow give birth to another shadow? It has to be the former, right? A mortal GU shouldn't be able to create a shadow from nothing. But even then, what could I do with twin shadows? Could I somehow use them separately, strengthening one with the power of a Lion Shadow GU, and the other with an Eagle Shadow GU? Or could I have one strengthened by a 9 Eyes Shadow GU, and the other with another theoretical GU, like 9 Hearts Shadow GU, or 9 Meridians Shadow GU? Could each shadow act independently from the other? Both are reflections of myself, not each other. They should act in a way that reflects different aspects of my personality, my desires, my secrets, and even my memories. Since twin Shadow GU are possible, can triple Shadow GU be possible too? Or even quadruple Shadow GU, or quintuple Shadow GU? Xuan Yuan tried to think of how a triple Shadow GU would be possible, but was met with a piercing headache. The limit of his intuition reached in a matter of seconds. Opening his eyes, Xuan Yuan just smiled, knowing he had a clear direction for the path of his research once the tournament was over. Lately, he was too busy thinking about things he could do as a GU immortal that he had started to neglect his shadow path. It was fine to think and worry about the future, but his actions in the present shaped his future achievements. Xuan Yuan needed to purge any excess thoughts of second aperture GU, primordial domain, or cultivating other paths, until after he became a rank 5 GU master. They distracted him from the things that were directly in front of him, and his master level attainment focused his attention solely on the shadow path. Moving his gaze towards the soul platform in the arena, Xuan Yuan could see Tai Yong and Feng Chen launch a flurry of kicks and punches towards each other. Tai Yong clearly wanted to reserve his primeval essence for Xuan Yuan, while Feng Chen continuously lost more and more blood with every movement he made. The young man's legs wobbled where he stood, and the referee unconsciously moved closer, waiting for the exact moment when Feng Chen's body and endurance couldn't keep up with willpower and perseverance. It happened barely 30 seconds later when Feng Chen's body started spasming, going into shock from the lack of blood. The referee announcing Tai Yong as the victor while Feng Chen was personally escorted by Elder Li to the Light Soul Hall, the older man unconsciously nodding at Feng Chen, praising his perseverance despite the overwhelming difference in strength. All eyes in the arena landed on one of two figures. Tai Yong lifted his head to look up at Xuan Yuan, while Xuan Yuan stood up, tilting his head downward to look at Tai Yong. The cheers of thousands of disciples echoed throughout the Strength Soul Hall, yet Elder Chang's voice cut through the screams of the crowd. Platform 1, Tai Yong vs Xuan Yuan. Reverend Insanity, White Shadow Demonic Venerable. Published by Web Novel. Chapter 45 Make Me. Xuan Yuan and Tai Yong stared at each other from across the platform. Both boys were tall for GU masters, although Xuan Yuan even at barely 16 stood a solid head above most of his peers. Even after a year of growth and development, Tai Yong still had to tilt his head back slightly to look up at Xuan Yuan's face. The otherworldly demon just smiled at Tai Yong, sending shivers down the young man's spine. Most of the time Xuan Yuan was quite aloof, but more than happy to have a conversation with someone, so long as it was about GU, or a topic relating to GU. But standing against Xuan Yuan in a ring, made the tall young man appear somewhat sinister. Tai Yong kept glancing behind Xuan Yuan, towards his shadow, numerous dark orbs floating within his shadow, like the silhouette of piranhas in dark murky waters. Tai Yong wasn't afraid of Xuan Yuan in terms of fighting him. If both parties were at maximum strength, Tai Yong would just overwhelm Xuan Yuan with heat, to the point where he couldn't physically withstand it anymore. Xuan Yuan's defenses were quite effective against opponents that needed to get close to him in order to attack him. Using something like heat against his shadows, showed him that he absolutely no defenses against such attacks. All of his fights had given something for Xuan Yuan to think about. His distinctly non-existent movement type GU. His lack of any proper defensive type GU. His weak physical qualities in comparison to other GU masters. His lack of any offensive area of effect type GU. His inefficient methods of using offensive type GU without proper enhancement type GU to support them. His inability to obtain any healing type GU, and his decision to not obtain any concealment type GU. Not to mention, his lack of a rank 2 Cloud Essence GU and a rank 2 Beggar Moth GU. These two particular GU highlight the possibility of extended fights in the GU world. Cloud Essence GU directly converts ambient primeval energy into primeval essence but at a horrible conversion rate. The speed at which accumulates is slightly higher for those with a higher innate talent, so comparing someone like Feng Yuan and Feng Zheng, the latter would receive greater benefits from the GU. And Beggar Moth GU was simply just more primeval essence. It only stored excess primeval essence, but still, if any of Xuan Yuan's rank 2 opponents possessed such a thing, he doubted he would be able to win the tournament. Xuan Yuan suspected that Tai Yong possessed a rank 3 Fire Path GU, and if he did possess a Beggar Moth, he would more than likely lose this fight. Each were fighting to the point where their opponent could no longer fight, so other than killing blows, anything else was allowed. The pair of young men stared intently at each other, this particular fight having two referees, each placed on either side of the arena. For the final match of the tournament, the entirety of the arena was available for use, roughly 2 acres worth of flag ground for GU masters to battle each other for supremacy. Both of the referees, one a rank 3 Earth Path GU master, and the other, a rank 3 Wood Path GU master stood by, both turning towards Xuan Yuan and Tai Yong, seeing both of them nod without removing their gazes from each other. The referees lifted their heads and looked towards Elder Chong. The large, Strength Path elder just smiled, raising his hand, bringing the screams of the crowd to a halt, filling the arena with a tension-filled silence. The Strength Soul Hall elder paused for a few seconds, before swinging his hand down firmly, causing a large gust of wind to billow throughout the arena. Let the bout begin. The entire crowd roared into action, screaming out Xuan Yuan's and Tai Yang's names. They expected the pair to immediately use everything they had all at once to defeat the other person, but instead, just watched each other, waiting to see who would make the first move. Xuan Yuan just raised his head slightly before walking towards his right. Tai Yong unconsciously mimicked his actions, each moving towards each other in a counterclockwise motion. Like the sun chasing after the moon, Tai Yong reflected Xuan Yuan's actions, causing him to smile seeing how cautious Tai Yong was. Tai Yang was a peak rank 2 GU master, while Xuan Yuan himself was a middle stage rank 2 GU master. Theoretically, if Tai Yang's dark red primeval essence was diluted down to Xuan Yuan's scarlet red primeval essence, it would equal a 1600% primeval essence C. That was the advantage of having a higher cultivation over his opponent. But Tai Yang's GU, while powerful, were all extraordinarily draining on his primeval essence. Rank 1 Fire Cloak GU and Rank 2 Burning Lantern GU both drained primeval essence by the second, while of all of Xuan Yuan's GU, only Shadow Stinger GU drained primeval essence per second, but it wasn't nearly as intensive as Fire Cloak GU. Fire Cloak GU had a much higher output in comparison to Shadow Stinger GU. It affected the area within 3 feet of Tai Yang, and the heat within 10 feet of him, while Shadow Stinger GU only affected the area that it could touch, which was within 5 meters of Xuan Yuan. This didn't include Burning Lantern GU, which possessed a significantly higher cost than Fire Cloak GU. Xuan Yuan had studied how much primeval essence his opponent's GU used per second in comparison to per use. While the former was significantly stronger than the latter, it was much more wasteful in the long run. Including these two GU, Tai Yang possessed a rank 2 Fire Chi GU, a rank 1 Fireball GU, a rank 1 Flash Burn GU, a rank 1 Fire Fist GU, and a rank 2 Heat Distortion GU, which could even affect Song Pei's Raging Waves Crocodile. His Fire Chi GU and his Heat Distortion GU also used primeval essence up per second, and even with his peak rank 2 GU master cultivation, using too many rank 2 GU at once drained his primeval essence rapidly. Xuan Yuan had also heard from Yu Xiaolong that Tai Yang's innate talent was between 75% and 79%. He was in B-grade talent, but his maximum primeval essence C was significantly lower than his own. A difference of 20% went a long way even if Tai Yang's cultivation was 2 realms above Xuan Yuan's. It lowered the conversion rate of 1200% primeval essence to 864%. Tai Yang had a higher quality of primeval essence to work with, but lost a large portion purely out of a lack of innate talent. It was almost a third of his potential maximum primeval essence. Xuan Yuan didn't remove the smile from his lips, despite his joints aching and his abdomen clenching occasionally, a flash of pain hidden behind a carefree expression. Xuan Yuan suspected one of his ribs might be broken, but ignored it, trying to worm his way into Tai Yang's mind. To be honest, Tai Yang, if I didn't defeat your sister earlier in the tournament, I don't think you would be standing here now. I know Elder Tai has given you a rank 3 GU, just like he did her. The only question is, do you have enough primeval essence to use it? Xuan Yuan said, a curious expression marring his features. Tai Yang frowned, shaking his head in denial. Father gave Yin a rank 3 GU for her own protection. Even if she is a peak rank 2 GU master, she is still a woman after all. It could save her life one day. I, on the other hand, have no need for such a thing. A few GU masters who could read lips raised their eyebrows, reading the conversation between the two combatants. The otherworldly demon just nodding, rolling his eyes softly. I will not be fooled by such meager excuses. A father would do anything to protect his children. Even an orphan like myself can understand such a thing. The only thing that I want to know is, if you want to take the coward's way out, just like little Yin did. Tai Yang's gaze darkened as he watched Xuan Yuan continue circling towards him. His sister used a rank 3 GU against a rank 2 GU master, one that was given to her, not earned through the rules of the sect. Even if his father could weather the consequences, Tai Yin and Tai Yang still both had their pride, as geniuses of the righteous path. Neither denied that Xuan Yuan's innate talent was better than their own, but in terms of all other fields relating to GU masters, they refused to be second to him. They were the descendants of rank 5 GU masters. They lived and breathed GU their entire lives. Neither one of them wanted to admit that Xuan Yuan knew more than them about GU or being a GU master. Tai Yang just remained steady, still staring at Xuan Yuan, his expression cold and frosty. Don't talk about my sister Xuan Yuan. She made a single fault. Do not let a single moment define her entire reputation. Xuan Yuan just smiled, shaking his head. His expression irked Tai Yang to no end. I'm sure that is what Spectral Soul said after he killed his first man. It was a one-off. It didn't mean anything. It was an accident. I didn't mean to do it. And look how he turned out. A few of the elders frowned at Xuan Yuan's words, glancing at Elder Tai and Elder Luo. The Waterpath elder remained as impassive and unmoving as usual, obviously already under an immense amount of scrutiny from the other elders. Elder Luo, on the other hand, didn't approve of Xuan Yuan's words, standing up in his seat about to reprimand his disciple. He opened his mouth to speak, but found no words come out, instantly glancing towards the sect leader who gestured for Luo Yu to sit back down. His words are insidious and untrue. However, Tai Yang and Tai Yin have broken the sect rules. This shall be their punishment. The ancient soul sect has never, and never will be a clan. Senseless nepotism and biased favoritism of disciples based on bloodline is not permitted in my ancient soul sect. The sect leader watched as Elder Luo glanced at Xuan Yuan, before sitting back down in his seat. His expression was a strange mixture of worry and disappointment, but the sect leader just waved Luo Yu off. Do not worry about the morality of your disciple Luo Yu. Discussions about prophecies aside, Xuan Yuan desires to rally Tai Yin and Tai Yang under his banner. Whatever he has in mind will not go against the tenets of our ancient soul sect. And besides, demonic path GU masters are even more venomous than Xuan Yuan. How can our disciples expect to combat them if the sword in their heart is flimsy and weak? Elder Luo was reminded of the conversation between Xuan Yuan and Tai Yin, soothing the worries in his heart. He nodded at the sect leader's words, giving him a bow. My apologies, sect leader. My heart wavered for a moment. It will not happen again. The ancient soul sect leader just nodding, moving his gaze back towards the arena. Things had become significantly more tense after Xuan Yuan spoke these words. Tai Yang stopped moving, allowing Xuan Yuan to circle around him, like a lion stalking its prey. He could see Tai Yang's fist clench, and begin shaking as the air around the Firepath GU master started to become distorted under immense heat. Xuan Yuan just smiling, finding the right nerve, shaking his head again, he continued his mental assault. I think it is quite an honor to be compared to a venerable, even spectral soul. He was the greatest murderer in history. You know what they say, right? Kill a single man and you're a murderer. Kill a million men and you're a conqueror. Kill them all and you're a god. Do you think that little Yin would appreciate what I am saying, right? An enormous inferno burst out of Tai Yang's clothes, dyeing him, and everything within 3 feet of him a burning, searing, orange. His expression was murderous, teeth bared in a mixture of hatred, anger and wrath marring his expression. If you don't shut up right now, Xuan Yuan, I swear on my ancestor's name, you won't ever speak another word ever again. Xuan Yuan just smiled, raising his middle and index finger together, his other hand behind his back. He gestured for Tai Yang to come closer, igniting further fury in the young man's eyes. Make me. Reverend Insanity, White Shadow Demonic Venerable. Published by Web Novel.